possibly a transformer that blew, but definitely scary stuff out here. So if you are saying, you know what, stir crazy, I want to go look and see what's going on, it's just not safe to do that because you never know what could happen once you leave your home, and it's really best to shelter in place to get out of it. Now, the rain is starting to pour even harder now. The wind has let up just for a little bit since I've been out today, and I've been out since about noon. The wind has been coming in spurts here and there, nothing that lasts too long, but when you do get that wind gust, it's a very strong and very heavy wind gust. This is the hardest of the rain that I have seen fall today, and also the most consistent rain I've seen fall today. And that's understandable because we are still hours away from landfall with this storm here, and it is still picking up the steam and moving in our direction. So again, the big warning here is that if you plan on going out, don't do it. I was over near the Courtney Campbell Causeway on Bayshore Boulevard in Clearwater earlier. When I was there, it was around 2 o'clock. The roads had already started to flood. On the other side of this bridge right here in some of these communities, the roads were flooding. I was there. I saw people doing their last minute preps, putting up things like flood walls and the sandbags and proofing their homes as best as possible, saying that as they sat there and they continued to watch these conditions, they said they had to do as much as possible to protect their homes. And this is definitely going to be a storm that everyone, it's better if you have not evacuated, stay put. Again though, this bridge right here, it's closed down. You can't get to the beaches and the island, but if you do want to come off of it, you still have a little bit of a chance to do so. I'm Jada Williams reporting in Indian Rocks Beach.
All right, Jada, thank you. We want to go right over to meteorologist Jason Adams, who has some warnings for us. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, we got a new tornado warning, and then we're going to get it over to Dennis for the very latest on what the hurricane is doing. Possible tornado coming out of Port Charlotte. I've said this 4 times already today. Exact same setup where we're getting near the Charlotte Harbor area water spouts that are developing here and moving on shore, and then these are heading into DeSoto and Hardee counties where we do have a warning for both. So southwestern Hardee from Wauchula southwest, and then Arcadia west, basically 17 west of the county line here in Manatee and Sarasota counties. This is where this possible tornado is going to be moving. So again, it's right now not in these counties. You can see the rotation showing up over Port Charlotte. Let me remove the warning here really quickly, show you exactly what I'm talking about. You got the blue and the green right next to each other. Winds going north and winds going south right next to each other, indicating spin. So this is what's going to be moving into southwestern DeSoto and Hardee counties over the next 15 to 20 minutes. The storm itself is moving really quickly. We're talking about possibly up to 70 miles per hour, the storm movement. So let me see what time this warning is set to expire. It is set to expire coming up here at 7:45. So I'll watch it as it comes out of DeSoto or out of Charlotte County and heads north into DeSoto and Hardee counties. It does include eastern Manatee and Sarasota County, but this will likely stay to the east of these areas. So that's what we're looking at here at the latest on our latest tornado warning. Do we have any new information on the storm itself, Dennis? Have you seen anything come in yet from the National Hurricane Center?
The last check I saw was still 125.
Okay.
And moving to the northeast at about 23 miles an hour. So we did the math, and I mean, basic math skills. This moves on shore, landfall around 11 o'clock tonight in the Big Bend area. Now, it's Jason, we were just kind of looking at it. So what we did is literally just drew a straight line. Right now, the center of the eye is pretty much due south of Tallahassee. Now, if this were moving due north, that would be maybe a little bit of a bigger issue, but it's moving north-northeast. So it's moving a little bit east of due north.
This is a tornado warning.
The problem is it could end up in the western eye wall. Remember, we were measuring just how wide the eye is, and it was about 40 miles when it was weaker. Now that it's got stronger, remember we used the old analogy of the figure skater, the spinner, and then, you know, the arms come in and it gets faster. Well, that's what's happening, and so the eye has contracted. So the eye now probably is closer to maybe 20 miles wide. So on the west side of the eye is the western eye wall. For Hurricane 101, you've got your eye, and then you have the eye wall, which is right around the eye. Almost always, the strongest winds are in that eye wall. And then what happens is the farther out you go, the weaker the storm gets. So right now, hurricane force winds extend 60 miles out from the center. In other words, sustained hurricane winds, winds blowing for a minute at 74 or more miles an hour, they extend 60 miles out. Right now, we are quite a bit farther out than that, closer to 80 or 90. So it's the main reason why we are not going to get sustained hurricane force winds in our area. It's too far away. And we've known this for a couple of days, really. But you're still getting wind gusts to 60 to 65. And some of that wind is still kicking in, and Pinellas is now getting the next round of very, very heavy rain coming in with the next band. And with this rain, you're getting very gusty winds. But the bigger concern, and we're not going to write off the rain concern because we're so wet, we're so saturated after this summer, it doesn't take as much for us to flood. So there's that. But this is not Debbie. Debbie was a slow-moving, massive rainmaker, and most of the flooding, dare I say almost all of the flooding that we showed you, especially in Manatee and Sarasota County, was from just too much rain. There was no place for the rain to go. It was a slow-moving system. This is the complete opposite, literally opposite. This is a very fast-moving system, so it doesn't have time to dump as much rain on our area as Debbie did. And there's what I was saying. I mean, if you look at the eye, it's about 90 miles from the coast of Pinellas or Pasco County, and it is moving this way. A couple of things. We're not seeing quite the lightning right now in it, so at least it's not getting any stronger that we can see. But I do think it's going to maintain that Cat 4 status right on into landfall, which is what the Hurricane Center was forecasting yesterday, if you remember. But again, my point is, now that the center, that the eye is actually west of Spring Hill, I mean, Hernando County, right? There's your east-west line. So south of that line, now the winds are coming onshore. And now it gets real in terms of the flooding. What we've seen is significant. What we are going to see is even more significant. But I want to stress this again. 90% of the people watching us right now are probably not on the water or associated with the water, whether it's the bay or a river or a lake, Lake Tarpon, or, areas of the Gulf itself. So the overwhelming majority of people who are watching, you will not be dealing with surge. But a lot of people ask me, I don't understand the concept of surge. It's real simple. Debbie was flooding because of rainwater. This is flooding not because of rainwater, but just because this big storm is just pushing this water in. And when that water goes into an area like the bay, it feeds in, it hits the end, and then it rises. When it hits the Gulf, or rather the coastline of the Gulf, and the base gets less shallow, right, or more shallow rather, as it rises, the water pushes up, the water rises. So that surge of 12 to 15 feet, the farther north you go, goes because of the geography of this area. It's like a bowl. It's literally an upside down bowl if you look at it, right? So when that water is pushed into the bowl, what happens? It rises when it hits the edge. And that's why we have just a massive surge concern, because you have a big storm. It's now coming up at high tide. Granted, the tide is a little lower. The high tide is a little lower than it was a few days ago, about a foot lower, which is good. But we are still looking at just a really bad situation for coastal areas. If you flooded with Idalia, you're probably going to flood more with this storm. If you flooded with Eta, you're probably going to flood more. Maybe not in the same spots, but Jason and I were looking at some of the numbers, the record flooding. And Jason, isn't it safe to say that most of our computer model forecast for the rise of surge are greater than a lot of the records that we've seen recorded for however many years?
I think the only thing we have in comparison to what we may see out of this is the 1921 Tarpon Springs hurricane.
Right.
Obviously, we had nothing to measure what that height was back then, but that's the only time we've had a direct landfall over the last 120 years or so.
And that's an interesting point, because that was a direct landfall, as Jason just said. This won't be. This thing's 100 and something miles away from us, more than that by landfall time. So the only time in recorded history that we're showing, based on the numbers that we think are going to happen and that the models are all over, are showing us that the only time we had something rival it is when we had a direct Cat 3 or 4 hurricane make landfall in Tarpon Springs. The last major hurricane to hit us, 1921. So that shows you just how big this is. And while areas, east of the bay, east of the Gulf, away from the rivers and whatnot are not going to flood, the folks who do are looking at unprecedented. And here's the first one I've not seen, Jason. Look at the last report in St. Pete.
There you go.
St. Pete with a gust of 76 miles an hour, hurricane force. Now, not sustained. And remember, sustained is 60 seconds or longer, but that's the highest gust I've seen. And that is certainly that next band that we were just showing you that's coming in. So, and you'll be able to see it perfectly here. So there's the one we had about an hour ago, and there's the next one. It's coming in right now. Storm is pulling away, so it's going to take some of that wind along with it. And it won't take long, more than an hour or two, for the winds to really start to subside in our area. So that's the good news. From south, you're already seeing the winds begin to subside. And then to north, that's going to continue because, again, this is going to be making landfall in about 3 or 4 hours. No changes to the advisories. Everything's the same. No changes to the track. Maybe, again, maybe a little bit. I mean, you can even see it. I mean, it always happens. I remember Wendy and I were talking about this on the set a couple of days ago. For whatever reason, when a storm comes in from this angle, at the very end, it has a little bit of a turn to the right. Not a hook like Charlie. I mean, not a big hook, but just a little bit of a bump to the right, which is why we were saying Taylor County earlier today seemed like a pretty good estimate for where landfall would eventually occur. If it's western Taylor, then Tallahassee still could be in that eye wall. But the margin of error, the cone of uncertainty, there it is. I mean, it's going to be somewhere in that area. I don't think it's going to be west, obviously. This is the official NHC track, and it's already a little bit east of that. It's already there. So I'm inclined to think right about here, west of Perry, so not Adalia Part 2 exactly, but pretty close, because I believe Adalia had 130. In fact, pretty sure Adalia was at 130 mile an hour Cat 4 when it made landfall. And this one is pretty darn close with the exact same wind speed. So it could very well be 2 years in a row that from areas around Steinhatchee, back to Keaton Beach, areas north, up around Perry and west of Perry, looking at it again. But ultimately, for our area, this is what we're going to be worried most about. This will be the most memorable part of this storm. I mean, a nightmare in a sense, because if we're looking at flooding, which we were seeing during daylight hours, and now all of a sudden we're expecting to add another 2 to 4 feet, maybe more in some spots, especially in Hernando and Citrus, and then all of a sudden it's even hard to fathom the 15 to 20 foot potential surge. I was talking to Wendy about that. That's like 4 Wendy's stacked up on each other. So I mean, this is a serious height of 20 feet, and then you have the waves on top of it. It isn't so you get what I'm saying here. I mean, this is just not a good situation, and it's unfortunately the price of living in paradise, I guess, in Florida. We do have to deal with these from time to time. And tonight is the night. By tomorrow, this is gone. I mean, the water will take a little while to recede, but not as long as it does with freshwater flooding. Freshwater flooding takes longer to recede than surge does. Typically, surge goes away pretty quickly after the storm leaves and the winds go in the opposite direction. Jason, what do you got about those winds?
Yeah, so the winds, like you said, now showing at 70 miles per hour. So we're getting consistent gusts here in St. Pete, down from 76 to 70. Clearwater Beach, also another spot that has a hurricane force gust now right at 74 miles per hour. So this next band coming in is the band that's now going past that 60 to 70 mile per hour point that we've been seeing through the bulk of the afternoon. Now we're starting to get those gusts over 70 miles per hour. So going county by county, trying to highlight some of these areas with the strongest gust. Brooksville so far in Hernando County at 53 miles per hour. Avon Park all the way in Highlands County, even farther away from the center. We talked about how expansive this field, this wind field is of this system. I mean, look at it like a wingspan of a big jet. This thing is massive compared to what we usually see in all the previous systems, except for tropical or Hurricane Irma. That one came through with similar conditions with that wide wind field. Avon Park, 51 mile per hour wind gusts. Here in Tampa, at Tampa International Airport, a gust of 64 miles per hour. MacDill Air Force Base, 56. We've got Manatee County, 68 mile per hour gust at SRQ Airport. So that accounts for Sarasota and Bradenton. Pinellas County, like I'd mentioned a second ago, 70 mile per hour gusts at Albert Whitted, 76 a few minutes ago. And now we're looking at Clearwater Beach 74, Crystal Beach 63, Seminole 61, Largo 50 mile per hour gust for you. And in Polk County, pushing 60 in Mulberry. We're at 53 in Lakeland, 50 in Lakeland, and in Sarasota, 69 mile per hour wind gust here at Venice. Now at Egmont Channel, this of course the channel between Egmont, Passage Key, of course Fort DeSoto and Anna Maria Island. That's an offshore wind gust on the water. Has hit 81 miles per hour. So those are the type of winds now coming into Pinellas County. 80 plus mile per hour offshore winds translating to 70 mile per hour winds onshore, of course, once we get in interaction with friction here from the land area. So clearly we're in the thick of it. Still looking at 60 plus mile per hour gusts even in Mayaca City and Arcadia. Current gust in Tampa at 46, but again topping out at Tampa International Airport at 64 so far. We've had some tornado warnings. Looking back over the last 15 minutes to see if this one has expired, and it looks like they're still continuing it here for those of you in Hardee and DeSoto counties. Let me zoom into this area, take a look inside the storm and see what I'm looking at as far as if we're seeing decent rotation. Let me stop the radar loop and turn the velocity scan on, and yes, just to the west here, those of you in Arcadia about to cross over Highway 72, this is the area of concern for possible tornadoes. So it's where the green and the blue come together. The brighter the colors, the more strong or the stronger the winds would be in this possible tornado. Right next to each other like that, you've got spin, you've got rotation. The blue winds going to the north, the green winds going to the south. When they're right next to each other in what we call a couplet, that is what we're seeing here on the radar right now. Let me switch it over to the debris signature. I'm not seeing any debris tracker picking up anything, so some good news there. If we saw debris, you would see a blue circle here just to the south of Highway 72. Not to say that we do not have a tornado in progress, but we are looking at least no debris showing up on the radar currently. So there's the cell. It will stay west of those of you here in Arcadia. Again, the movement off to the north roughly at about 60 miles per hour. Let me pull up the warning and see what the speeds are currently with this one. Warning goes until 7:45, and while it does include a section of Manatee and Sarasota County, it's literally right at the county line, but the cell is not going to impact those of you here in Manatee or Sarasota County. So yes, moving to the north at 60 miles per hour, so within 5 minutes, it's going to be past us here in Arcadia, but this does extend into sections of Hardee County. So once we get to Highway 70 and then into Hardee County, up 661 and 663, these are areas that if you're in these locations, make sure you're treating this as we do have a tornado in progress. You never know within these supercells, within these hurricanes, because they're typically rain wrapped. It's not like you can go out and see it and plus the sun is set or it's about to set. We, of course, now we have nocturnal tornado potential, and that, of course, is a little more scary. So definitely treat this as if this is a tornado. If you're trying to figure out what to do, you've never been in this situation before, turn your TV all the way up. That way you can continue to hear us speak, and then you'll want to go to the most interior portion of your house, lowest level of your house. So an interior bathroom or a closet, something without windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside winds that this possible tornado could be bringing. Of course, you're trying to protect yourself from debris, and your walls of your home will do that. That's why you want to get into the middlemost portion of your home. I want to go back to St. Pete, though, because even though we're not getting tornado warnings, we're getting 76 mile per hour wind gusts. Look at this band that is just locked in place right now here over St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo, Kenneth City, Lealman, back west to Indian Rocks Beach, Reddington Shores, Treasure Island, Madeira Beach, and even St. Pete Beach. You all are getting in on the action here. Look at how fast this is coming in off of the Gulf, too. And remember, this is coming in off of the Gulf where we've had 80 plus mile per hour winds at some of our maritime sites that are out there taking observations here for the offshore waters. So that's what it looks like here for those of you currently in the St. Pete area, where again 76, 74 mile per hour wind gusts are showing up in Tampa. Light rain at this point, but coming in off of Old Tampa Bay here across the Courtney Campbell and the Howard Franklin. This next wave is coming in. Could see gusts continually over 60 for you. A little bit of a break in Riverview and Bradenton right now, or Brandon, I should say. But this cell down to the south from Apollo Beach east to Waimama is moving north and east as well. 60 mile per hour winds are likely within this batch. Anywhere you see these red cells here on the radar, that's the strongest downdraft, the strongest area where we have all the rain that's developed in the clouds that's coming down to the surface. Gravity and downwinds are working to pull these winds that are stronger aloft down to the surface. So within any of these individual bands, that's the best opportunity for you to get those 60 to 75 mile per hour winds that we're seeing out there right now. There goes the eye, like Dennis said, also wanting to point out what he said as well a second ago. If you draw a line straight south from Tallahassee down to the eye, Notice that the eye is not moving due north at this point. It's still on that north-northeasterly trajectory, which would hopefully keep the worst of the storm to the east. Of course, you don't want to see it anywhere, but in Tallahassee, you've got a city of 200,000 people right there. You'll want to try and avoid that at all costs, of course. It's the capital city. It's a the tree canopy there, if you've never been along I-10, it's some of the most densely populated forest that we have here in the Sunshine State, and it's all pine and oak trees, that extremely tall ones, because this area for decades has missed out on significant storms. You go back to, I believe it was 2016, they had Hurricane Hermine. It was a Category 1. Tallahassee was without power for 3 weeks from a Category 1 hurricane. For our parts of the area, it's usually a week or two for a Category 1 worst case scenario. So that's what we're hopefully trying to avoid. Hopefully we can get some weakening as it moves on shore. But like Dennis said, the environment's just there for this to at least maintain its intensity as it continues to move off to the north and east. Some tornado warnings also up in Georgia, but right now there's tornado warnings to the south. I'm not seeing anything that's too concerning with them at this point. Dennis?
Hey, Jason, I want to mention something to you. So I was just talking to my in-laws. Live in Siesta Key, all right? They've been there for 20 years. They have 3 inches of water in their house, and they've never even had water up to their garage before.
Wow.
So that kind of, and remember, that's south. So what happens with the flow, all of this flooding, all of this surge goes from south to north. So Siesta Key, you know, just to the south of Sarasota, if you're now picking up 2-3 inches of water in your house and you've never had water before, and that's not the worst of it. I mean, there's going to be, that water's going to continue to rise. I mean, folks, this is just a sign of what we can expect for the next 6 hours. I mean, emergency management doesn't order a mandatory evacuation for Zone A for just no reason. I mean, they realize what a headache it is for folks to have to pick up and go. But when we're now hearing reports, and like I said, I mentioned this a couple hours ago, a buddy of mine, a guy who used to work actually here, a producer, a meteorologist locally, he lived locally, he now travels the world literally for meteorology stuff. He texted me about 3 or 4 hours ago saying he truly believes that this is going to be the worst flooding, worst surge that we have seen in decades. So if you didn't believe this was an issue, you better start believing now. And I don't really know at this point what else you can really do, right? I mean, it's now almost 8 o'clock, and this is going to start really rolling in more so between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. It's too late to evacuate, but the next 4 to 5 hours, again, this is only for people who live on the water or with access to a canal or a river or a lake that feeds into the bay or the Gulf. This is not rainwater. So if you're at home thinking, oh my heavens, I'm going to flood, I'm going to run into the surge, and you live in eastern Hillsborough County or Polk County or eastern Pasco, you're not. Totally different setup, nothing to do with rain. This is 100% Gulf water, salt water being pushed in, and unfortunately, it's just starting. This is going to continue for another solid 6 hours. So, Jason, what kind of wind gusts are you actually showing that we've seen over the last couple of hours?
Yeah, so this I haven't updated yet. I was actually just about to update it, but 76-mile-per-hour wind gusts in St. Pete is the top one so far. We've had 69-mile-per-hour winds in Venice. That has not been topped since that was posted earlier. 68 at SRQ Airport. We've had 74-mile-per-hour wind gust at Clearwater Beach. By the way, I was just looking at the tide gauge for Clearwater Beach, and Clearwater Beach is now in moderate flood stage with the surge coming on shore here in Clearwater Beach. Let me pull that up and actually, yeah, so moderate flood stage starts between 2.5 and 5 feet. The threshold, I believe, is 3.5 feet to 6 feet-ish, and it looks like we've hit 3 feet now in Clearwater Beach, which means we have moderate flooding ongoing. We'll likely start to see parts of the island having overwash here at Clearwater Beach from the Gulf to the Bay side as we continue to see this flood stage rising. I don't recall us going to moderate flood stage with Clearwater with Idalia last year. So we could already be exceeding what we had with Idalia. And it's all because, again, when we look at this hurricane, it's all about your latitude in reference to where the eye is. And now the eye is offshore of the nature coast. So here at Clearwater Beach, St. Pete Beach, Sarasota, Siesta Key, down south to Nokomis, this is where our winds are now turning back off of the Gulf. And we've passed low tide, which means the tide is working back into working with these winds to allow us to see these winds really begin to push this water back on shore. I believe you said Gulfport is the camera that we have. Let's go ahead and pull that camera up. My goodness. Dennis, take a peek at this, buddy. This is Gulfport now. When we showed you this earlier, there was about 2 to 4 foot of surge. And I think this is clearly significantly higher than that right now here. This is at the Gulfport Casino, correct?
Yeah.
That's where this camera is. So, yes, unfortunately, it looks like these surge totals are coming to fruition. That was a 5 to 8 foot worst case scenario surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center. And I obviously can't tell you how deep it is right here, but we could see parts of the street earlier. We can't see any of the street now. So I would imagine that we're looking at, we're seeing some of the stairs on the building across the street. Those stairs now are starting to get overlapped by some of the waves.
I'm trying to look what time high tide is for Gulfport.
I believe it's right after midnight. So we're like,
We've got 4 more hours of this water rise.
Yeah. Guys, go ahead and pull up Nadine's mic. There we go.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but Pinellas County not too long ago said that if the water starts to get into your home, shut off your electricity and gas, climb to the highest point possible, and make sure you have an escape route if you can. But they put that out because obviously it's too late. You can't get out of this. Right. And they also said that crews will not be coming out to you when it's unsafe. And we know all of the bridges in Pinellas County are now closed. All of the causeways to the barrier islands are closed. And you're getting a live look now at what was it? Reasonable worst case scenario in Gulfport, and we're looking at the storm surge. And I think, Dennis, you were looking at high tide?
Yeah, I'm looking at the tide level here. Gulfport, right now, the tide level, based on what time it is right now, is at about 1/2 foot. It's going to rise to 1.9 feet by midnight, 12:22 to be exact. So you're already going to get another 1.5 foot rise from the tide, just the regular tide, in addition to that onshore flow. Man,
this happened in like 2 hours, guys. I mean, it was...
Yeah, well, and we've got
inland, but the fast forward speed will allow strong, damaging winds, especially in gusts, to penetrate well inland across the southeastern United States, including over the higher terrain of the southern Appalachians. Hurricane force winds extend outward up to 60 miles, 95 kilometers from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 310 miles, 500 kilometers. A weather station at Venice Municipal Airport recently reported a sustained wind of 46 miles per hour, 74 kilometers/h, with a gust of 69 miles per hour, 111 kilometers/h. Another observation near Venice Beach reported a sustained wind of 51 miles per hour, 82 kilometers/h, with a gust to 66 miles per hour, 106 kilometers/h. The estimated minimum central pressure based on data from the Air Force Hurricane Hunters is 951 millibars, 28.09 inches. What minor flooding is forecast? Where? Nancy Creek at Rickenbacker Drive at Atlanta. When? Until late tomorrow morning. Impacts: at 12.0 feet, moderate flooding occurs. Widespread flooding of residential yards and property occurs upstream and downstream from the gauge on Rickenbacker Drive. The water will begin to enter crawl spaces and walkout basements of homes on East Powderhorn Road and Hitching Post Trail around 1.5 miles upstream, along Rickenbacker Way near the gauge, and outbuildings on Fairfield Drive around 2 miles downstream. Additional details: at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time Thursday, the stage was 4.5 feet. Forecast: the river will rise above flood stage this evening to 11.6 feet late this evening. It will then fall below flood stage to 10.7 feet just after midnight tonight. It will rise above flood stage again late tonight to 11.9 feet tomorrow morning. It will then fall below flood stage again late tomorrow morning. Flood stage is 11 feet. http://www.weather.gov/safety/flood. Flash flood warning remains in effect until 9:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time this evening for southwestern Butts, northwestern Monroe, southeastern Fayette, Henry, Lamar, Pike, Spalding, and Upson counties. At 6:25 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rain across the warned area. Between 1 and 1.5 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall amounts of 1 to 3 inches are possible in the warned area. Flash flooding is ongoing or expected to begin shortly. Hazard, flash flooding caused by thunderstorms. Source, radar indicated. Impact, flash flooding of small creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets and underpasses as well as other poor drainage and low-lying areas. Some locations that will experience flash flooding include Griffin, McDonough, Thomaston, Barnesville, Zebulon, Stockbridge, Hampton, Locust Grove, Milner, Brooks, Jenkinsburg, Yadesville, Williamson, Orchard Hill, Meonsville, Sunnyside, Aldora, East Griffin, The Rock and Lincoln Park. Turn around. Do not drown when encountering flooded roads. Most flood deaths occur in vehicles. Flash flood warning remains in effect until 9:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time this evening for Clayton, DeKalb, northeastern Fayette, central Fulton, southwestern Gwinnett and northwestern Henry counties. At 6:26 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rain across the warned area. Between 0.5 and 1.5 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall amounts of 1 to 3 inches are possible in the warned area. Flash flooding is ongoing or expected to begin shortly. Hazard, flash flooding caused by thunderstorms. Source, radar indicated. Impact, flash flooding of small creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets and underpasses as well as other poor drainage and low-lying areas. Some locations that will experience flash flooding include Atlanta, Decatur, Fayetteville, Jonesboro, Peachtree Corners, City of South Fulton, Sandy Springs, Roswell, Dunwoody, East Point, Duluth, Stockbridge, Union City, Forest Park, Riverdale, College Park, Lilburn, Chandley, Norcross and Doraville. Turn around. Do not drown when encountering flooded roads. Most flood deaths occur in vehicles. Here is the official forecast from your National Weather Service for the Atlanta listening area. Tonight, very windy. Showers. A chance of thunderstorms, mainly this evening. Locally heavy rainfall possible. Near steady temperature around 70. East winds 15 to 20 miles an hour, increasing to northeast 40 to 45 miles an hour after midnight. Gusts up to 70 miles an hour. Chance of rain near 100%. Friday, strong winds. Mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and a slight chance of thunderstorms in the morning, then partly sunny in the afternoon. Highs in the mid-70s. Southwest winds 50 to 55 miles an hour, becoming south and diminishing to 20 to 25 miles an hour in the afternoon. Gusts up to 75 miles an hour. Chance of rain 30%. Friday night, partly cloudy. A slight chance of showers in the evening. Lows in the lower 60s. South winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. Gusts up to 25 miles an hour in the evening. Saturday, mostly sunny. A slight chance of showers in the afternoon. Highs in the upper 70s. Southwest winds 15 to 20 miles an hour with gusts up to 25 miles an hour. Saturday night, mostly cloudy in the evening, then becoming partly cloudy. Lows in the lower 60s. Light southwest winds. And now the extended forecast. Sunday and Sunday night, partly cloudy. Highs in the upper 70s. Lows in the lower 60s. Monday and Monday night, mostly clear. Highs in the lower 80s. Lows in the lower 60s. Tuesday and Tuesday night, mostly clear. Highs in the lower 80s. Lows in the lower 60s. Wednesday and Wednesday night, clear. Highs in the lower 80s. Lows around 60. Thursday and Thursday night, mostly clear. Highs around 80. Lows around 60. For more detailed weather, water, and climate information, please visit our website at weather.gov/Atlanta. What? Flooding caused by excessive rainfall continues to be possible. Where? Portions of central, east central, north central, northeast, northwest, southeast, and west central Georgia, including the following areas: in central Georgia, Baldwin, Bibb, Bleckley, Butts, Crawford, Crisp, Dodge, Dooley, Houston, Jasper, Jones, Lawrence, Monroe, Montgomery, Peach, Pulaski, Putnam, Telfair, Twiggs, Wheeler, Wilcox, and Wilkinson. In east central Georgia, Emmanuel, Glasscock, Greene, Hancock, Jefferson, Johnson, Tolliver, Trutland, Warren, Washington, and Wilkes. In north central Georgia, Barrow, Cherokee, Clayton, Cobb, Dawson, DeKalb, Douglas, Fannin, Fayette, Forsyth, Gilmer, Gwinnett, Hall, Henry, Lumpkin, Morgan, Newton, North Fulton, Pickens, Rockdale, South Fulton, Union, and Walton. In northeast Georgia, Banks, Clark, Jackson, Madison, Oconee, Oglethorpe, Townsend, White. In northwest Georgia, Bartow, Carroll, Catoosa, Chattooga, Dade, Floyd, Gordon, Haralson, Murray, Paulding, Polk, Walker, and Whitfield. In southeast Georgia, Toombs. In west central Georgia, Chattahoochee, Coweta, Harris, Hurd, Limar, Macon, Marion, Meriwether, Muskogee, Pike, Schley, Spalding, Stewart, Sumter, Talbot, Taylor, Troop, Upson, and Webster. When, through Friday afternoon. Impacts: excessive runoff may result in flooding of rivers, creeks, streams, and other low-lying and flood-prone locations. Creeks and streams may rise out of their banks. Flooding may occur in poor drainage and urban areas. Additional details: areas of heavy rainfall will continue across much of north and central Georgia through early Friday, which will likely lead to areas of flash flooding. Additional widespread torrential rainfall is expected to overspread the area today as Hurricane Helene approaches. Storm total rainfall of 4 to 10 inches with locally higher amounts are expected through Friday. Widespread flooding is expected with significant flash flooding and moderate to major river flooding possible. http://www.weather.gov/safety/ flood monitor later forecasts and be alert for possible flood warnings. Those living in areas prone to flooding should be prepared to take action should flooding develop. Helene to bring unprecedented wind and flooding impacts to north and central Georgia through Friday's situation overview. Hurricane Helene, currently southwest of the Florida Peninsula, will accelerate northward over the eastern Gulf of Mexico today. Helene is forecast to become a major hurricane before making landfall along the Big Bend of Florida on this evening. Due to the intensity and fast-forward motion, unprecedented wind and flooding impacts, rivaling or exceeding those of Hurricanes Opal 1995, Irma 2017, and Michael 2018, are expected across the north and central Georgia. Several areas have already received 2 to 4 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. Additional rainfall amounts of 4 to 8 inches, with localized amounts over 10 inches, are expected. The highest amounts will occur over a wide swath paralleling I-85 into northeast and east central Georgia. Widespread flooding is expected with significant flash flooding and moderate to major river flooding possible. Tropical storm and hurricane force wind gusts, potentially exceeding 80 miles per hour, are expected to begin across the southern portion of the forecast area on this evening, then quickly spread north overnight into Friday morning. Hurricane force wind gusts will be possible for some locations, including the Atlanta metro extending eastward towards Athens and in the higher terrain of the northeast Georgia mountains. Outside of these locations, tropical storm force wind gusts are expected all the way up to the border with Tennessee and North Carolina. Given the saturated soils, widespread downing of
David Dutton in the Command Center. I want to give you an update now on the very latest on what's going on. We'll have the very latest on the track of the storm with a new advisory that has just came in just a few moments. But first, I want to get you updated on the very latest tornado warnings. The tornado warning remains in effect until 8:15 for DeSoto County. A few moments ago, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was near Charlotte County Airport, and it is moving to the north at 40. Again, that's a tornado warning for DeSoto County. This is in Florida. Tornado warning for Florida, Hardee County and DeSoto counties until 8:15. And again, the very latest tornado warnings are in Florida at the moment. We're going to continue with this isolated tornado threat throughout the evening and into the overnight hours, unfortunately. This is just in. 911 services have been suspended now in Sunset Beach, Florida. Again, 911 services suspended in Sunset Beach, Florida. Right now, we're looking at Mean Helene, even given the nickname because it's such a monster, 500 miles wide. And we're still waiting for the 8 p.m. advisory that is coming in any second now. And as we do that, we're going to find that, as you see live there on your screen, you're seeing pictures from Tampa in the right corner. We'll go to that in just a second. But the rest of the picture shows the radar, and we're seeing this big storm out in the Gulf headed in the next few hours, headed straight for the Perry, Tallahassee areas of Florida along the Big Bend here. Already seen some light rain there, and showers extend all the way up into Georgia. We have flood warnings here in the Atlanta area that will continue throughout this evening. I've already received 4 inches of rain in Atlanta over the last 24 hours, and Helene hasn't even got here yet with its brunt of the storm. So it's likely that we will see those 6 to 12 inch totals when it's all said and done over the next 24 hours across north and central Georgia. And those higher totals, 12 inches, a foot of rain, is possible in the northeast Georgia mountains, where we may actually see, believe it or not, landslides. And we don't tell you this information to scare you. We're just trying to give you the facts, and it's up to you to make decisions that you need to make to protect your life, family, pets, and property. Of course, you want to check on your neighbors, especially if they're elderly, someone may be living by themselves. You want to make sure, be a kind neighbor, and check on the people around you as well. Really, any preparations should be completed by now, especially in Florida. The storm is coming in, and it's just hours away from landfall. And again, it's already hitting the western side of Florida, in particular the Tampa area here. Although not at the moment, but the surrounding areas such as Clearwater, getting in on some heavy rain and wind. Lakeland, Florida, about to get in on that as well. And again, this is such a wide storm. This is the eastern half of Helene. You can see it's right there off the coast of just due northwest of Tampa now. And precipitation's headed up toward Ocala and Gainesville. Next, some light rain there now, but the heavy rain will be moving in the next few hours. Of course, you see it's always the right or the eastern side of the storm that's the worst, the dirty side as we call it. Over here on the left side, of course, the radar only goes out so far into the ocean. We're at the Tampa radar, but typically the left side is less dangerous. All the tornadoes today so far have been in western Florida, southern Georgia, And in the Charleston area, we had a tornado warning earlier. We don't have any reports of damage, but we are getting word now of 400,000 people without power in Florida as a result of Hurricane Helene. Again, almost 500,000 people without power already, and the storm has not even made landfall yet in the state of Florida. So we're going to switch over for a few moments before we go to Tampa, and they're continuing local coverage there, to Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross. He's on Fox Weather right now with the very latest on this very dangerous storm.
Here is not the eye or the center that we track down at the surface of the ocean. So it's the surface center that actually defines what the center of the hurricane is. So that's why you see the line there going to the north, and the eye, apparent eye on the satellite, a little to the right. Yes, it has been wobbling a little bit, but not as much as it looked like. 130-mile-an-hour winds is the latest estimate. Another Hurricane Hunter plane is on the way there, so we should have more data coming up here in the next hour or so. 942, the pressure continues to go down. So 942, now we're getting into real serious territory. I mean, Hurricane Sandy was giant and all it was 944, and I thought, wow, that's a mind-blowingly low pressure for that wind speed. So 940 or something like that would support higher winds than 130. So we'll see if this organizes. The fact that it's a little tilted might keep it from intensifying too much, and that energy might spread out into this huge hurricane. All right, I just want to show you this because I know folks are looking at home and thinking, oh, is this deviating somehow? See, these clouds here are you see the kind of grayish white are very, very high in the atmosphere, and so that's the top of the storm, and it's just that the storm is tilted just very slightly. So those clouds are probably at 45 or 50,000 feet there, and the hurricane hunters are actually dropping instruments down to find out where the center is down there right at the surface. So anyway, it is on the same track. The question is exactly what's going to happen here, but it's a big storm. There's really no reason to think that, oh, this is good news for Tallahassee or bad news for anybody. This is bad news for everybody here in North Florida and, of course, along the coast. There's that radar, and we're still seeing lightning flashes out here in the eye. Sometimes lightning flashes indicate that there's still an intensification process going on, and the question is that eye going to shrink a little bit as it heads in this direction, and that would indicate strengthening. But we do see that it's not a closed eye wall, and that's again an indication that it might not have a pristine environment around it. So that tilt and the fact that we're not getting a closed eye wall with this kind of a low pressure might mean that. We'll see what happens here and see if it does close that off. It might be some dry air coming in here on the backside that is just eroding it just a little bit. Anything, of course, to help keep this down. But look at the scope of this, and I wanted to mention these outer bands. These outer bands, as you saw if you're watching Ian Oliver in St. Petersburg, under an outer band. These outer bands are where the tornadoes are because the wind's turning with height dramatically. You see one up here around the Charleston area. And when we look at the radar, if you're going to look at it at home, there's the eye wall, and then you can count the bands, and you can say 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always a kind of approximate 5, 6, something like that. And each band closer to the eye has stronger winds on average. Also to do with where the strongest storms are, of course. But that's how you know how gusty it's going to be. So this band coming in here, which looks like it's going to move up the coast towards Cedar Key, Steinhatchee, up toward Keaton Beach and so forth. That one is going to be gustier than the ones that have been there before. And of course, this is where the strongest winds are, right near the center. All right, so notice the rain all up in here, and this we're very, very fearful for a flood catastrophe up there in the upstate of South Carolina into western North Carolina and the Blue Ridge Mountains, and up there before this is over. And I wanted to just look at the Tampa situation right closely. There's though this band may or may not get to Tampa. Looks like things are letting up there for a moment. They're in between bands. That strong band that was in earlier has moved inland there just a little bit. All right, here's the latest wind gust. St. Petersburg, look, up to 67, 64 at the PIE airport. That's St. Petersburg Clearwater International. And 62 down here at Sarasota. The winds have finally switched now, so they're coming from the south. So that still is not the direction that drives the water into Tampa Bay and up against all those beaches there. But as we've always seen, the water is rising there dramatically. Up to 4 feet now above normal high tide, flooding in Fort Myers Beach, heading for moderate flood at Naples. That's at Naples Pier there, right along the beaches. 4.8 above normal high tide, Clearwater Beach. Look at all these going up now, heading for 4 feet. And that's because the tide is coming in. That is not because the storm is pushing the water in, Jane. So we have both things going on, and unfortunately, both are going to happen at the same time, right? The tide is just plain old tide coming in. And then when those winds turn around later on this evening, then the water is going to get pushed in behind the tide, and nominally midnight-ish in Tampa Bay.
And that comes even after Helene is well off to the north.
Well off to the north, because the wind direction then comes directly into the bay.
Right. Gosh, it is still just incredible to see the scope of this storm. There's so many different impacts that we're covering
what
here.
82 mile per hour.
82 mile per hour gusts in downtown St. Pete.
St. Pete, so is that at the airport there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the Albert Whitted Airport, which is inside. So this is it. This is kind of where that tide gauge is there, more or less. It's on Tampa Bay. It's not on the beach side.
Right.
So it's on Tampa Bay, but on the other side of the peninsula where St. Petersburg is.
When you talk about those winds and the force of that, no surprise what Ian Oliver was showing us, how far that surge has already pushed its way in, and we're not even at the peak of what this could become when we look down the road in the next several hours.
Not to mention the power outages. By the way, inquiring minds want to know, why are power flashes aquamarine? It just turns out that nitrogen and oxygen in the air ionize and make that color.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get a big arc in the power system, it ionizes the air.
Well, it is. It's an unsettling color to see.
It is.
Especially at night.
I remember seeing it in Miami many times in hurricanes, all the aquamarine flashes. It's kind of a nice color, but I mean, it's really sad.
It tells you that unfortunately hundreds of thousands,
things are happening.
Right, bad things are happening. Brian Norcross, thank you for your expertise as always. We're going to be here with you all night long on Fox Weather. Find out how to stream us. Go to foxweather.tv. Of course, have your charged up phone set on your Fox Weather app. You're looking at Fort Myers, Florida. Emergency personnel closing down, I believe, this road. I haven't seen any passage. They've already seen flooding reports on Fort Myers Beach itself. So we've been covering these stories up and down the coastline, and unfortunately we are going to continue to watch as a powerful Hurricane Helene barrels towards landfall in the dark of night. Keep it here on Fox Weather. We've got the latest information.
Yeah, that's a big power plant. Whoa. Are you seeing that? That was a massive power plant coming from.
Speaking of the aquamarine that Brian Norcross was just mentioning earlier, just about 30 minutes ago, we were talking with Ian Oliver there in St. Pete, where we've had 82 mile per hour wind gusts, power flashes, and the power is out. We are going to continue to follow this story very closely, bring you the latest live pictures of what everyone is experiencing there in St. Pete,
but also to up and down the Florida coast and into Georgia and the Carolinas.
Do you have an invention idea but don't know what to do next? Go to inventhelp.com now and get free information on how to get started today. InventHelp provides invention services that help everyday inventors get started with their idea. We have representatives nationwide who will explain the InventHelp process step by step. Over 10,000 patents have been secured through InventHelp's patent referral services. Our services include professional materials needed to showcase your invention and 3D animation and prototype modeling that help you demonstrate your idea. Get down to the details of your idea with a technical drawing. The InventHelp Databank includes thousands of companies who have agreed to review new ideas. We've been helping inventors since 1984. Let's help you next. Take advantage of the opportunity to get started today. Go to inventhelp.com for free information.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. That sedentary inactivity is terrible for your health. It's time to add some extra steps to your day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact. It's the easiest exercise you will ever do.
Ellipse fits perfectly under my desk, and it is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs. Increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Power-assisted exercise that frees your mind to enjoy your favorite seated activities. Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Plug it in, place your feet, select your speed, and relax. Ellipse does all the work. Loosen
period before we start seeing big improvements with this. So let me take a peek. I also want to hit on power outages. And looking at the statewide map, we're at 415,000 for the state. In Pinellas County, 120,000 without power. Hillsborough County, 46,000. Manatee and Sarasota, 35,000 and 47,000. Pasco County's numbers also now going up to 36,000. So again, statewide, which includes parts of the Nature Coast up to the Appalachia Bay, 415,000 without power. And the eye is very quickly moving to the north and northeast. So there's Tallahassee. If you draw a line straight south from Tallahassee, as far as a landfall goes for the city, there's the center of the city. Straight down here is where the eye is. And notice if the storm moves due north for the rest of its track, then the western eye wall will hit the city. If it stays on this track or continues that north-northeasterly component, the eye wall may miss Tallahassee and they may miss the 100+ mile/hour winds. They'll still get hurricane force winds, category 1 or maybe even 2 style, but it may avoid the 140, 130 mile/hour winds with it being a Cat 4 at this point. So we really got to see if this starts to nudge a little bit back more to the left. I don't think that'll be the case. I think at a minimum, Tallahassee's going to be really, really close to the eye wall coming on shore. Where the eye moves on shore is most likely going to be into Taylor County. So Lafayette, Wakulla, Taylor County. That's these 3 counties here, from Sopchoppy over to Wakulla Beach, and then over toward the Horseshoe Beach area, Keaton Beach, getting north of Cedar Key. That's the coastline that's probably going to see this moving on shore as that center continues to move to the north-northeast. But again, the farther away it gets from us, we'll start to see these conditions improving, and those conditions will really start to improve after we get to our next high tide. But I think with that onshore wind and these strong tropical storm force winds that are persistent for hours and hours because of how large the wind field is with this storm, it's going to be a while before we start to get out of those tropical storm force winds. I want to see if I can find another map that would show that a little bit better for us. I don't know. I have 1,500 graphics in my show right now for hurricanes, so I'm trying to find it, but I don't see it. I'll maybe show that the next hit. But again, when you're talking about 300 miles, here's what we're talking about. So there's the center right now. We still have tropical storm force winds in the southern Gulf. So it's going to take this hurricane and the center getting way up here toward Atlanta for us to finally get out of those tropical storm force winds. The arrow stopped here at 282 miles to the south. We know that we're going to have several hours still even going towards sunrise before we start to see these conditions significantly improving. So that's the latest over here. Tornado warnings that we were tracking earlier have expired or they were canceled. I do not see any more active tornado warnings at this point. So again, we're just kind of waiting to see this make landfall. That's the next big step. And for those of you that are up north, like Dennis said, Crystal River down to Pine Island, down to Hernando Beach, down to Newport Richey, you are now going to see these winds accelerating up to 70 and 80 miles per hour, and your surge is going to really start to move back on shore. Notice most of the wind barbs are still south right now, but we're really seeing them more so out of the southwest. Once that happens for Crystal River, that's when your surge is going to start to really climb. And one last peek at the gusts, see if we got any updates on these. Yeah, still 79 showing up at Newport Richey. Look at the difference from Crystal River at 36 to 53 in Brooksville to Newport Richey at 79. I guarantee you that's probably because that band hasn't made it to Crystal River yet. That heavy rain band that's responsible for these strong gusts. We'll take a peek up north and exactly that. So there's the band that's producing 70 plus mile per hour wind gusts now. It is moving into Citrus County, so we've got it over top of us in Brooksville, Beverly Hills, Hernando, Inverness, back west to Crystal River. It's over top of us in Sugar Mill Woods and Homosassa. Areas here from Chassahoowitzka north. This is also a region that we've got to watch the surge that could exceed 10 feet depending on exactly how this plays out over the next few hours. But you guys have not had those strong winds yet today. You're getting them now, and these bands are going to continue to move on shore. Look at the eye wall too, by the way, before I send it over to Wendy. We've got Crystal River right here. The eye wall is now 50 miles to our west, very, very close to the eye wall. The actual eye itself is, it just ran off the map there, 75 miles to your west. So again, you're a lot closer in Crystal River to the eye than we were here in Pinellas, Hillsborough County. So that's why the surge is going to be maximized in these areas that could potentially get up to over 10 feet. Wendy?
Thank you. We're going to take a look at, this is a live look at Gulfport, and as you can imagine, this has been flooded like a river for hours now. This is a live look. This is above the casino that's there, and it's just, this is, I mean, truly, it's whatever buildings are around there and the casino, I have to think, are just going to be completely full of water by the time the high surge comes, high tide comes in just a couple of hours. We also have a look at I-4, and apparently there's a crash. This is in Hillsborough County on I-4 West. We're told a sign fell on a vehicle there. We don't know about any fatalities or injuries, but this is on the ramp from 21st Street, and that's the on-ramp there, and it's now closed. Of course, crews on the scene evaluating exactly what happened, and again, if there are any injuries or fatalities, we'll keep you up to date on that. And now we want to look at Treasure Island. City leaders there now tell us the fire department will no longer respond to any calls for service on Sunset Beach. Look at the flooding and the surge there. Unbelievable. Crews say they will resume operations once conditions are deemed safe. These are the images from Treasure Island, and this was earlier this evening. As you can see, it's still light out and now it's dark. The water rising up towards people's homes, and over the past few hours, water has just continued to pour onto the streets, and of course, as the surge continues to build, it's only going to get worse. And here are some images from Treasure Island earlier again this evening. A lot of storm surge in that area as well. And we want to check out some of the power outages because they keep going up. As of 8:15 this evening, there are at least 117,000 Duke Energy customers in Pinellas County and another 18,000 plus in Pasco County without electricity right now. Further down the coast, Florida Power and Light, they're reporting more than 35,000 power outages in Sarasota County and another 31,000 in Manatee County. And we have new video coming in, and this is from our meteorologist, Greg D. Apparently he's already up. This is in Tampa Heights near Armature Works. The Hillsborough River, as you can see, they're flooding, and it's really, I mean, this is now hitting, I feel like, all of our counties, and it's only going to get worse as we head further into high tide in the next about 2.5 hours, 11 p.m. And on for many areas in our viewing capacity. We want to go to Jada Williams. I believe she is live for us at one of the beaches. Yes, Jada is in Indian Rocks Beach. Looks like things have calmed down a bit compared to when we've checked in with you before. Jada?
Yeah, things have calmed down just a little bit, but not really enough to say, things are getting better. I'm still here over at Indian Rocks Beach. I'm on the other side of the bridge, so I'm a little further away from where the beach actually is. Take a look right here. I'm at one of the businesses, and as you can see, they were prepared for this storm, ready to go. They have their hurricane shields up on the windows and the entrance just right beside it. I saw the roof come off of this building right here. Let me step out of the way and come over to this side. Pieces of that roof are now in the ground and they're tumbling by. You can see it going across right there across the street, and that's been happening since I've been out here. When we get those really big gusts of wind, it's blowing all of the debris like pieces of that roof and trees and things that have come down. You see cars that are turning around. The reason they're having to turn around is because, like I said, I'm by the bridge that gets you to Indian Rocks Beach, and right there, if you're trying to cross that bridge, you're not going to be able to do it. That's because Pinellas County deputies are stationed along the entire bridge, keeping you from going over it and getting into Indian Rocks Beach. It's the same with the bridges getting you to the other barrier islands and closer to the water here on in Pinellas County. Now, when we were over on the other side of the bridge earlier today, we had already started to see flooding. We decided that we wanted to come on this side for more safety. We made that decision probably around 6 o'clock or so. And to put it into perspective, we've been seeing flooding here around North Pinellas County since about 1 o'clock today when we got started. So conditions haven't been great all day long, even though, as you can tell now, they are starting to get stronger. I mean, look at how, I don't know if you can see it very well on the camera, but look at how the wind is whipping this rain around. As I mentioned, you know, we continue to get those really strong bursts of wind, and then it kind of tames down a little bit. So we're now adding the wind and the rain together. The really big thing right now is that Pinellas County officially has that shelter in place, and there are people, I've been on social media looking, a lot of people who are saying, oh, I finally decided to stop looking at the beach. When we were driving by earlier, there were a lot of people out there still looking. Pinellas County is saying that is not safe to do because we have that storm surge. That's a really, really big factor into this storm, and it's just not safe to do so. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, this right here is closed off, and it will remain closed off because as it's now dark, you also don't know what you may be driving into. As you can see, this truck right here has had to turn because you are not getting through. The only people who have been able to make it through over here are the ones who have the lights on their truck, law enforcement and other first responders. Reporting live, Jada Williams, ABC Action News.
Jada, thank you, and it's nice to hear that folks out there are heeding the warnings. I do want to mention, unfortunately, that breaking news. We talked about a crash in Hillsborough County on I-4 West. That is, in fact, a fatality. And if you're just joining us, we were told that a sign actually fell on top of a vehicle. This, again, is on I-4. The ramp from 21st Street on the west side, I believe, is now closed. Crews, of course, on the scene trying to clean up what happened. But in fact, the driver did die in that accident. We will try to give you more information as we get that I-4 area cleaned up. Meanwhile, we want to go to Pasco County now. Julie Solomon is in Hudson for us out there. Julie, I know we're entering the time where, of course, like many other counties, it's high alert. Really, you need to stay in place wherever you are. Do not evacuate because the fact that it's so dark out now, the flooding and the surge is rising, and you just don't know what you could be walking into or driving into.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Wendy. Luckily, we have a couple of light poles here. The electricity is still working out here, but the flagpoles in this area are just whipping around. The winds have really picked up from just a couple hours ago. Earlier today, we just saw some light rain, some of those bands, but now we're really getting hit with the brunt of it, and you can just see how the conditions have deteriorated. A lot of rain, obviously, as you can see, as Helene makes their way through the Tampa Bay area offshore. So if you take a look, you can see just how the wind has really picked up. This is Hudson Beach, so for people familiar with this area, it's right by the inn on the Gulf. And the locals here tell me that this area usually floods, especially with high tide and the storm surge. So storm surge was, their big.
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm. A new series, now playing only on Channel 1.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. Is a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right. Channel 1 Atlanta.
This. You said you have experience being in the fire department, so thoughts on this?
It's dangerous downtown. I definitely think the level's too far to be driving around.
Right.
But hopefully it clears up in the morning. We'll be out at the show and clear up, and everybody come out to the boat show.
Not quite what you had thought you would see on your, trip here for a conference, right?
Not at all. We make the best of it.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for speaking with us. Hopefully you guys are safe and your power stays on, of course.
Thanks so much.
Of course. Now, speaking of power, there's just over 52,000 customers that are out of power just in this county of Hillsborough County. That's another thing to keep in mind. About an hour ago, I saw a transformer blow, excuse me, yeah, it's the power. I saw a green glow in the sky, so I assume it was. Jane?
Brandy, it is. I mean, power is going out there in Tampa. I mean, just the way that these floodwaters have continued to come in, this is the surge pushing into Tampa Bay. I can't help but notice the sludge, too, that you're standing in. So all of that water pushing in, I mean, it's bringing with it things that you don't want in your backyard.
Yeah, that's right. It's just flowing in. I mean, at this point, I feel like we're one with the bay. You can see the water levels on the street behind me, but it's kind of matching up with the bay along that fence as well.
How have the wind gusts been for you? I mean, we've been watching them clock out, towards St. Pete Beach. We had an 82-mile-per-hour gust there. So those hurricane-force wind gusts, they're at the coast. Where you're standing, have you been feeling some pretty powerful gusts over the last hour or two?
Yeah, no, we definitely have. It's definitely on and off. I've been keeping an eye on some of the signs, some of them shaking a lot. So just trying to keep in mind not to stand behind them because we don't know if they might fly away. So the stop sign's just kind of shaking a bit. And obviously you have the palm trees off in the distance, just giving way a little bit. Obviously, it's not the worst that I've seen, but you come outside, it's pretty obvious that we are feeling the impacts from this hurricane, which is amazing because we are so far away from the center of it.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're nearing 5 feet of surge there in Clearwater Beach. Surge has been hovering around 3 to 4 feet there in the Tampa Bay. So Brandy, be safe out there. For now, you have power. We hope it stays on, and we're going to follow you and continue to check in as the night goes on. look at some of the conditions out of Tallahassee, Florida, as they await really the brunt of this storm. And you can see the floodwaters already. The Panhandle has been dealing with flooding rains over the last several hours. And unfortunately, the worst is still to come for Florida's capital city. That's where we find Fox weather meteorologist Kiana Lewis. Kiana, how are things looking out there for you right now? I mean, the dark of night, we've been talking about this, ramping up. That's what the impacts are going to be when we look down the road the next few hours.
Absolutely. I mean, Jane, just a couple of minutes ago, we didn't have this rain that we have now. So it just speaks to the ebb and flow of how those outer bands are coming through. And then we may catch a bit of a break and then they come through with a heavier downpour. And that's what we're getting now. Thankfully, the winds, while we'll have these gusts up to sometimes 25, near 30 miles per hour, they're not as significant as they are expected to be heading into later tonight. So that's certainly something that I think a lot of folks are taking advantage of at this hour. We know that going into the 9, 10, 11 o'clock hour, that's all going to change as we head closer and closer towards that landfall. I noticed that we had a little bit of a shift to the east. That makes all of the difference in terms of the center of the storm. So that's something that, of course, we're going to continue to watch as well. But in terms of the rain, those outer bands, the leading edge of Helene, certainly is making itself known here in Tallahassee. And I think a lot of folks are heeding to that. If you look at the streets, if you look behind me, notice that it almost is a ghost town at this point in time. So a lot of folks are definitely down as the sun has gone ahead and set, and they're setting themselves up for later tonight. I talked about last hour, if you didn't get that last little bit of juice in with your devices, now's the time to do so while we still have power. Notice all of the Spanish moss trees behind me are still lit up at this hour. It is expected to change going through tonight, so we are expecting a lot of these opportunities for power outages with these trees maybe tumbling down on power lines as we head into the later half of tonight in that landfall time frame. And of course, if you don't have your device charged up, or if you're not prepared to get the alert from our Fox Weather app, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you want to make sure you're prepared for that while we still have that power tonight. As I mentioned, at this point in time, I think the one thing that's really making itself present here in Tallahassee is the heavy rain. Going into the next, hour or two, I wouldn't be surprised if those winds start picking up as quickly as the rain has been doing so far this evening, Jane.
Of course, Kiana, we're watching those bands too close for comfort in Tallahassee, and you're right. Power up those phones. And I think, too, going into tonight, make sure as you're going off to sleep, because you rest as one does, know where that safe place is inside your home in the case of those warnings. You don't want to be anywhere near windows, power not only going out, but trees falling. That's a big concern up in near Tallahassee. So we're going to be following you all night. Kiana Lewis, thank you for the report there in Tallahassee. All right, let's get you a big picture here to Tampa. We've been following along with the floodwaters and the surge in the Tampa Bay, out on St. Pete, Clearwater. I mean, this storm has so many impacts. There's phase 1, which is what we're going through right now along the coast, awaiting that landfall, which is going to come in about the next 2 to 3 hours as we look ahead into the early overnight time frame. But we're also watching these outer bands, and phase 2 is as Helene makes landfall and then races up through Georgia and into the Carolinas. We already had one confirmed tornado that was up in North Carolina. In fact, it's ongoing right now. That warning runs for another just under 10 minutes. That goes for Caswell County and Rockingham County. So you talk about how far-reaching those impacts are. That's almost on the Virginia border. We also have several tornado warnings in place right now across southeast Georgia and into the low country of South Carolina. But Brian, what jumps off the map to me here too are these flood warnings. We have numerous flood warnings, including flood warnings in Atlanta, biggest metro hub in the southeast, which is really going to take the brunt of Helene post landfall.
Well, so we have multiple things causing flooding, right? One is just continuous rain. And Atlanta, if you know Atlanta, it's a very hilly place. There are big rivers that come through Atlanta. The Chattahoochee River comes through Atlanta, where all the rain that falls in the mountains comes into the Chattahoochee River and then comes down through the city. And there is a history there of major flooding in Atlanta, in northeast Atlanta, where they have neighborhoods all around that river. So
here and evacuate, mandatory evacuations, keep safe.
You told me you were still being helped by the American Red Cross as we speak. You have kind of a temporary mobile home out there right now that you worry about losing over the course of the night. You think it's in a place where storm surge isn't a factor, but with the amount they're predicting now, you're just not sure. What is the mindset as you sit there in the lobby of this hotel, just kind of wondering what the night will bring?
Some fear and sadness. This is a hurricane of epic, catastrophic consequences. It's going to devastate my small rural fishing community. Everything I have in the whole world is nestled in a 38-foot camper. The thought of losing that and having to start over again, can't hardly wrap my head around it, Chad. I don't know.
You told me that you kind of put yourself in a mindset knowing that you're going to lose the camper. That way, if it is still there tomorrow, you know it's a welcome sight. Is it kind of hard to get yourself in that mindset?
It is, but there's resiliency and strength. We're Horseshoe Beach strong. It's a mindset and something you have to muster up if you're a survivor. If you're going to conquer and overcome this, you have to get in an attitude of gratitude and thanksgiving and perseverance, and that's what we're made of in this rural fishing community. We're fighters.
Here at the Putnam Lodge, such a sense of community. We enjoyed some of your chocolate chip cookies with sea salt a few minutes ago. They were fantastic. But tell our viewers about the prayer circle you held here earlier this afternoon. A good number of people joined you. What did you pray for?
Strength, no loss of life, for the Lord's will to be done in our community. We prayed for the surrounding communities. We prayed for the state of Florida. It's going to be that epic of a storm. It's going to affect my whole state. Our God is good and He's faithful and He's going to protect us. I don't know the outcome, but God does. He held us in the palm of His hand during Hurricane Idalia through Hurricane Debbie, and He's got this. And Horseshoe Beach was founded on people of great, enormous strength, and we're resilient, and we'll put God first, and He'll carry us through like He has in the past.
Lisa, thank you so much. We're praying for you and Horseshoe Beach and really all of these communities along the Big Bend. But like you said, resilience is in your blood. And that's clear when you go to some of these places that were just devastated by Hurricane Idalia. They were laying sod in Horseshoe Beach a few weeks ago because they rebounded after Idalia. I'm sure they'll do much the same after Helene. And one more thing, because they are burning my ear up, the hurricane party behind me, I want to show you these fine folks out here. They're doing the right thing. They got out of harm's way. They could have easily stayed and, figured they could have weathered this storm. They chose not to do that. They chose safety. They are here hanging out tonight. Again, a hopeful mindset. Plenty of prayer, some laughs, some smiles, but there is that sense that when they go out tomorrow, whenever it's safe to do so, the home they live in might not be there. So you have to think about these people. It's devastating what they are up against, but Florida's strong. It was true after so many previous hurricanes, and I'm sure it'll be true after Helene. Send things back to you guys in the studio.
Chad Mills, live for us in Florida's Big Bend as they brace for this. And you hear the reverence and respect that she has for this storm, and knowing that those folks kind of got out of the way. I have a feeling that Helene is going to be one of those storms that we won't forget. It's going to be on a list of Ian and Charlie and Irma and just thinking about those folks in the Big Bend.
Well, no doubt, especially as we're not even at high tide, and the surge that's coming is unprecedented. Our areas have never seen anything like it. So,
and that the footage that we're getting in already has been very eye-opening. Let's move now to Tampa, because our Anthony Hill is in downtown right now near the Amalie Arena. And Anthony, what are you seeing down there? Are you seeing flooding in downtown?
Yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of flooding, actually. I'm actually standing in standing water right now. I do want to tell you this, though. In our last live hit about an hour ago, we were on Davis Island. That's where we've been reporting all day long. And in that last live hit, I told you, we're on the tip of Davis Island at the airport. And I told you that so much water, the wind got so intense, it started to pick up water and bring it on land. And I said this was probably going to be our last live hit there as we were getting uncomfortable and we left. As we were driving around Davis Island, thankfully we got a tip saying that if you want to leave, you may want to do it right now because there's flooding that's accumulating on the bridge that connects Davis Island and Tampa, and that some of the smaller cars just couldn't make it, and so a lot of the cars are waiting on the other side. Thankfully, we were able to make it across, so we almost got stuck and stranded on Davis Island. As for conditions here, as I said, a lot of flooding in downtown Tampa. As you can imagine, the conditions here are similar to the conditions in much of the Bay Area. There's a lot of rain, not raining right now, but I'd expect it to rain in a few minutes as we have bands that come over us. So there is rain, there's a lot of wind, there is flooding. My boot is about I would say about 12 inches a foot. My boot is pretty much submerged in the water right now, just to give you some context. And this is not even the worst flooding that we've seen in Tampa. So, yeah, those are the conditions here in Tampa. Like I said, a lot of wind. And interestingly enough, our meteorologists have been reporting that we probably won't experience like constant wind. And that's true. That is true. We're experiencing more gusts. I don't know if you can hear it, but, you know, every 5 seconds you'll hear a gust of wind that comes through. And I mean, you can see some damage. You can see trees that have been knocked down, leaves on the ground, things that you would expect when we have, you know, a storm of this magnitude coming by by the Bay Area. But those are the conditions right here, right now in downtown Tampa. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Anthony, thank you. And as the surge, of course, continues, we're going to see more of that, especially in Tampa and in South Tampa. It's an area that I've lived in for a long time, and the drainage issue there is already awful. And I have to say, because of the rain, the amount of rain we've had over the last couple of months, the ground is so saturated that any more rain and the surge is only going to get worse because there's nowhere for it to go. I mean, there really is nowhere to go. So, and speaking of South Tampa, we want to take a look at Bayshore Boulevard right now. And the flooding, again, we saw hours ago. I know conditions have deteriorated. And Rebecca Petit is standing by there. Rebecca, I don't know. It looks like you're on the ground now. We saw you up in a condo a couple hours ago.
That's right. So we're still along Bayshore Boulevard, but we've moved further down because the conditions have gotten worse. The water continues to creep into the neighborhood, so we had to move a little further down. Obviously, storm surge is the biggest concern here in Tampa when it comes to Hurricane Helene. And this is an evacuation zone, so many people have left, but also many people have decided to stay. And some longtime residents that I've spoken with earlier today, they tell me they've never seen it get this bad so quick.
So I've been in the neighborhood about 30 years, and this is the highest I've seen the water come up into the neighborhood so far, based on my 10-minute bike ride.
And as you can see, as I mentioned, the water continues to come into the neighborhood. All of that is storm surge. You can see the water. All day we've seen people come out here just curious to see the water and how it has come over the seawall. Many people have been riding their bikes, walking, driving, and even wakeboarding inside of this water. Obviously, that's very dangerous. We don't recommend that you do that. Now that the sun has gone down, a lot of people are staying inside. Officials continue to urge you to stay inside and off the roads if you don't have to be on the roads. For now, live on Bayshore Boulevard, Rebecca Petit, ABC Action News.
Rebecca, and your cameraman kind of zoomed out behind you, and it looks like a river. I don't know where you are, but I'm seeing cars pass you, and it looks like they're having to go down a side street because that area right in front of you is impassable. How far down are you on Bayshore? Are you near Swan? Give us an idea of what street you're on. I know you said Bayshore Boulevard, but where's the cross street? How far south are you?
We are on Swan at this point. We've moved further down because the water continues to come down. So we are on Swan at this point. You can see people on their hoverboards, still very curious, just trying to take a look at how far the water has come down.
Oh, yeah, we see people on scooters there, too. And we just want to remind you, take this time to say that that water is not a fun area to play in, as we've talked about. This is not just water that, comes from your sink or from the bay. This is mixed with fecal matter and bugs and snakes and anything and everything that comes from our sewer system. And it's just not something you should swim in or bike in or scooter in or more even just walk in, because if you have a cut on your foot or anywhere on your body and that water gets into that cut, it's a bacteria that I can't imagine would just give you a horrible infection. And it's just not a safe area to be in.
This looks like an optical illusion. I don't know. I mean, it looks like those are literally waves on Bayshore Boulevard there, and it's going in like two different directions. Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong. Are the lights flickering out there as well? Are you seeing kind of some power hits?
No, right now it seems that all the lights are still on. Everyone does have power at this moment, so that's good news.
Okay.
However, yeah, you can see those waves crashing. Definitely not safe to be out in that water. People are getting closer, but turn around once they realize how dangerous it is right now.
And can you tell us how many streets, obviously you guys have had to move a couple times, are flooded? Are there very few to get down now because so many of them are flooded as this surge continues to rise?
At this point, we have one light, one cross street with a traffic light where people are kind of stopping and turning around. And like I said, we're on Swan. And at this point, people are realizing that they can't go any further down than that. And so we're on Swan and Fielding at the moment. And once you hit that intersection, you're going to have to turn around.
Yeah, so I imagine Bayshore is shut down, not just to where Howard and Swan, that area always floods. That's very common. But even further down south the other way, where you're getting closer to the base, MacDill Air Force Base, Bay to Bay, Euclid, Gandy, that area I have to imagine is also starting to flood because, again, as we mentioned, the water has nowhere to go. The ground is so saturated, the surge is continuing to rise, and we're nowhere near high tide yet. So unfortunately, this will only get worse. All right. Well, you stay safe out there, Rebecca. Thank you for your latest report. We'll check back in with you in just a bit.
Let's go ahead and move to our northern counties as well. ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler is in downtown Crystal River right now. And this is really going to be also a part that's really going to take the brunt of it there. Eric, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, we're starting to see the worst conditions so far this evening. The rain has definitely picked up, and we're seeing the strongest wind gusts that we've felt so far. We're in the town square in Crystal River and Citrus Avenue that leads out to Kings Bay, and that's where we're going to be watching throughout the night as you see the hard rain coming down and the gusts of wind. Kings Bay is where we're going to be watching the storm surge potential. We've heard the predictions, 10 to 15 feet. Which, if that comes true, city leaders here, county leaders have said that would be catastrophic for this community. They have dealt with a lot of storm surge and flooding with Hurricane Idalia and then Hurricane Debbie more recently. But Idalia was really the bad one that flooded a lot of Crystal River. And it's taken so much time for people to recover. And now they really face what could be just a horrible storm surge that would do so much damage to so many homes down that area as I get pushed back a little bit by this wind. And this all is expected to hit maybe around midnight or so. That might be when we start to see it. And here where we are, these businesses, they've put sandbags, they've boarded up their windows, and this area has been cleared out for most of the day, as a lot of the area of Crystal River has. That's US 19 out there. We still see some people out on the roads, which at this point I would say is not a good idea. But it should be around midnight when we could start to see that storm surge. And obviously, if we start to see some water issues coming up here, we're going to move up to higher ground very quickly, because this is an area that could be underwater when we revisit here tomorrow morning. And a lot of it is because it's going to be happening at night in the dark, and it's going to be so difficult really to gauge just how severe it is until tomorrow morning. But people are still hoping that somehow it does not happen to the degree that is predicted, but at this point we just don't know. We're waiting to see what happens. Live in Crystal River, Eric Waxler, ABC Action News.
Eric, thank you. Well, as Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips and, of course, our meteorologist Jason Adams mentioned earlier, it's been a couple hours actually now that it is a Category 4, so I don't think that's going to go down anytime soon since it's still in the water. So stay safe out there, Eric. We want to go now into St. Petersburg. It's continued to flood there, Shore Acres in particular. It's a neighborhood that we know is prone to flooding, has been flooding for many years now.
Katie LeGrone has been there all day. Katie, I feel like you're getting higher and higher because you are running from that water. Tell us, what are you seeing out there, especially now that it's dark? I'm sure it's pretty eerie out there for you.
Yeah, it really is. And right now what we're seeing is when the street becomes a river. I mean, take a look behind me. I mean, I heard you talking to some of the other reporters where it almost looks like an illusion. And that's what we're dealing with here now on Shore Acres Boulevard. I mean, this is completely impassable. The entire road is just underwater right now. Homes that have been sandbagged up to the front door, the water is clearly creeping up there. So the idea that this is happening now some 4 or 5 hours away from high tide is pretty scary, pretty frightening. I want to just give you a little bit of a vantage point. So we're on sort of a platform here overlooking Shore Acres Boulevard. This is the parking lot of the recreation center. I can tell you we've been standing out here for about 25 minutes or so, and when we got out here and got situated, the flood or the puddles of water were sort of concentrated in this corner. And I said to my photographer, Matt, look, we'll show some of the water starting to creep in. Well, that was about 25 minutes ago, and look at this. This is what we're seeing. We're even talking about moving our van, which is parked in the parking lot here, to another section of this recreation center because the water is just spilling over into this parking lot at such a furiously fast pace that it's surprising us, quite frankly. This has always been the concern in this area, which, as you stated earlier, is prone to flooding. It's sort of a rinse and repeat kind of feeling out here where people talk about flooding here just on a typical rainy day, on a normal rainy day. And so the expectation, the fear was anywhere from 5 to 8 feet of water after that high tide around 1 o'clock this morning. And it appears, at least at this point, that that might come to fruition, and that's pretty scary for this area. I know that the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office already has their water rescue teams on standby. They are ready, they are preparing, and they are expecting to have to come in here, whether it's through the overnight hours, in the morning hours, early morning hours, to go ahead and help people get out of their homes because this water is rising so fast in this very flood-prone community already. That's the very latest here. We'll be out here, of course, for the next couple hours. As this water continues to rise, we are going to head to safer, higher ground because it's just coming in so furiously. Guys, back to you.
Katie, quick question. The homes that we see behind you, do you know if anyone's home right now? Did you talk to them?
So it doesn't appear like anybody is home, at least on these in these homes that specifically that I'm looking at on Shore Acres Boulevard. I can tell you that we have been in touch. We've been staying in touch with a homeowner who's right on the bay side of Shore Acres Boulevard. He decided to stay put. He's been sending me some videos. I just spoke with him, I guess about 40 or so minutes ago, and he said, yeah, the water is rising and it's rising very quickly. It's already crested his dock, well crested his dock, making its way into the backyard. He decided to stay put. Throughout the afternoon and the early evening, we had been talking to people. Some people stayed, some people leave. I mean, that's kind of the story in every community. For people who have stayed here, these are individuals, you know, who have been here for a while. They've gone through flooding. They've gone through pretty severe storms. I spoke to a couple of guys who moved in about 3 years ago, and they said after the 10 inches of rain last summer during Idalia, they decided to go ahead and evacuate today. For some perspective, guys, Idalia brought about 4 feet of storm surge to this area. The expectation again is that 8 feet will come with Hurricane Helene, and at least from the site right now, it looks
downwind are probably about 100 yards away, so at this point I'm fairly comfortable standing here as far as things flying around. It's just a big open field out there, so the wind has really nothing to be stopped by. As far as the rainfall totals, we hadn't had much rain until now. It was all east of us. Apalachicola, Panama City, 5 to 7 to 8 inches of rain. There have been flash flood warnings in that area most of today. We have not been under a flash flood warning. We're under a flash flood or a flood watch rather until tomorrow morning. This is moving very fast, upwards of close to 25 miles an hour. So once we get in the eye and then on the other side, the back side is not nearly as strong or wet as the front side. And I think it's going to be like we saw Debbie and Steinhatchee. The rain is going to shut down, and that's going to be pretty much it for the night, except the damage will have been done because those wind gusts are going to knock out the power. It'll be interesting, Jane, to see how long we keep power here in Perry. But they lost power in Debbie for a couple of days, but in Idalia last August, it was out for 7, 8, 9 days. A lot of trees came down. We're talking today with the mayor saying, well, those trees are down, but there's still other trees that were partially damaged. And with all this rain and even stronger winds by far versus Idalia, there's going to be a lot of power outages. And the power crews, as I talked to the mayor earlier at the airport, the power crews are going to be coming through the area after the storm blows by. So they're staging west of here, and they will come in after the storm goes by and set up at the airport. And we may actually be out there tomorrow, I'm not sure, but literally hundreds of crews. They're expecting 1,000 power crews in Perry alone to get the power back on. Jane?
Mike, we were doing some digging. The alarm that went off on your phone is an extreme wind warning for the eye wall of Hurricane Helene. So expecting those conditions to become dangerous, life-threatening over the next couple of hours. Really, truly, forget that. I mean, we're talking those impacts likely imminent when we're looking ahead towards, the next 30, 45 minutes. We could see that. I mean, the eye wall measuring what we're seeing right now, a good 40 miles from where you're standing.
Yeah, it has gone downhill very quickly in the past 30 minutes. Apologize for folks walking into the shot, but It's a definite downhill now, right into the eye wall and then into the eye. I think we're going to be in the eye by about 11:30 or so Eastern, if my math is right, about 2.5 hours. But in the
There we go. Good evening. This is David Dutton in the Channel 1 Atlanta Command Center with continuing coverage now of Hurricane Helene, as we've been bringing you since really much of the evening and late into the afternoon. We're going to continue our coverage all night long as much as we can to keep you ahead of this very dangerous and historic weather event. Hurricane Helene now has winds of 130 miles per hour, as you see at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And we're finding that the pressure it's really dropped. This is a very strong storm. The pressure is 27.82 inches of mercury. Very strong hurricane with a very tight eye that is coming in with the very latest information. We're going to have a new update from the Hurricane Center in just a couple hours at 11 p.m. Sooner, if need be, if there's a dramatic change in the storm. We've had a couple of those today as well. And but first I want to get you over to the very latest tornado warnings that are coming in, and then we'll get you out to our coverage that we're going to be bringing you throughout the evening from local and national networks. First and foremost, here's the very latest tornado warnings. Just in, a new tornado warning has been issued now for Long County. This is in South Georgia. A new tornado warning for Georgia now, Long County, until 9:30. A few moments ago, a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near Tibbet, moving northwest at 50. So these are moving very small spin-up tornadoes, but of course they go over your neighborhood. It's a mess. So Long County and South Georgia tornado warning until 9:30. Some of the locations include Donald and Johns Creek. A tornado warning is in effect for Wheeler County in Georgia until 9:15. The storm is located near Almo, and it's moving to the northwest at 45. So again, these quick spin-up tornadoes are moving very quickly. You do not have much time to take shelter in the center part of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have one. You don't have much time to do that with these moving as fast as cars are going down the expressway. Tornadoes are extremely difficult to see and confirm at night. Do not wait till you see or hear the tornado. Take cover now. In South Carolina, a tornado warning remains in effect until 9:30 for Bullock, Candler, Evans, and Tattnall counties. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located 7 miles to the north of Belleville, moving northwest at 50. So again, all these are moving very quickly. Also in South Carolina, a tornado warning continues until 9:15 for McIntosh County in South Carolina. The storm was near Cox, moving to the northwest at 40. Also in South Carolina, a tornado warning is in effect for Bryan, Chatham, and Liberty counties this is in southeastern Georgia. So this is Chatham County, which is the Savannah area, Bryan County, and Liberty counties in southeastern Georgia until 9:45. This is a recent tornado warning that is just coming in. A confirmed waterspout was just off the coast of St. Catharines, and it's moving inland northwest at 35. Again, a confirmed waterspout just off the coast there, St. Catharines. This is in southeastern Georgia near the Savannah area. Waterspout coming in to Bryan, Chatham, and Liberty counties in southeastern Georgia. Confirmed tornado until 9:45. Some of the locations in the path of this tornado on the ground include Pooler, Richmond Hill, which is in the Savannah area, Half Moon Landing, and St. Catharines Island, of course, is where the tornado is now. This includes highways Interstate 16, Interstate 95, between mile marker 79 and 98. Move to the interior section of the lowest floor of a well-built building away from windows. If you're outdoor in a mobile home or in a vehicle, move to the closest shelter. Protect yourself from flying debris. Tornadoes are difficult to observe at night. Take shelter now. Tornadoes from tropical storms and hurricanes can form and move very quickly. Take cover immediately. If you wait till you hear the tornado, it could be too late. Take action now to protect yourself. So again, this is a tornado, confirmed tornado in the Savannah, Georgia area right now for Bryan, Chatham, and Liberty counties until 9:45. That's the most urgent message I've seen in the last few moments. A tornado warning continues. This is for North Carolina out of Blacksburg, Virginia, for Caswell County in North Carolina. The storm was near Jericho, moving northwest at 25. Tornado warning continues for Glenn County in southeastern Georgia until 9:15. And in South Carolina, Chatham, Beaufort, and Jasper until 9:15. So there are really numerous tornado warnings right now, in particular the South Carolina area. And again, a tornado warning continues to 9:15 for Chatham, Beaufort, and Jasper counties. At 9:04, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over the Isle of Hope, moving northwest at 45. That's an update. And locations impacted with this storm, they're not calling it a confirmed tornado anymore, but downtown and midtown Savannah is in the path of the storm. So if you live in Savannah, Georgia, you need to take shelter immediately. A tornado is headed your way. Again, downtown and midtown Savannah. Hunter Army Airfield is in the path of this storm, along with I-16, I-95, and I-516. So again, this is an urgent message for Savannah, Georgia. Take shelter immediately. A tornado is headed your way. We're continuing to scan for the very latest tornado warnings. We have an update out of Caswell, North Carolina. A tornado warning for central Caswell County will expire at 9:15. The storm has weakened. And again, if you just joined us, we have a tornado headed for downtown Savannah, Georgia. If you live in Savannah, Georgia, you need to take shelter immediately. This is a life-threatening event. Remain calm, but you need to get in the center part of your house away from windows, and you need to get into the basement if you have one. If you're running into a flooding situation there, you need to get as low as you can to get away from the tornado. But if you have floodwaters coming into your home, get it. It's kind of a balancing act. Get as high as you can and as low as you can. You have to balance it out. If you're in a tornado situation at the moment and a flooding situation, if water is actually coming into your house. So we got a lot going on tonight. This is a 500-mile wide storm that is coming into the southeast tonight. A very precedented weather event that is occurring right now. Maybe one of the strongest storms we've seen in years in the southeast and in Florida, and especially in Georgia. All 159 counties in Georgia are currently under a state of an emergency. Numerous counties in Florida as well. And of course, we've been telling you about this storm for over a week here, and unfortunately, it is now a Category 4 hurricane with winds over 130 miles an hour as it approaches the coastline right now. It should make landfall in the Florida Panhandle here over the next couple of hours. Now here in Atlanta, if you're joining us from Atlanta, which is where we are, and want to get a local update, they're expecting the worst of the weather to come in between roughly midnight and 10 a.m. Of course, during the overnight hours. The main threat in Georgia will be the high wind and the flooding. Significant flooding is expected and the possibility of major severe flooding from the northeast Georgia mountains through central Georgia down into southwestern Georgia. The threat in Georgia, and particularly metro Atlanta, for the tornadoes will be just east of downtown Atlanta. There is a chance of a couple of tornadoes around here, but again, mainly just east of downtown Atlanta, in places like Athens, Eatonton, maybe Griffin, over to Fayetteville, and as close as maybe Decatur, before all this is said and done. So we will keep you updated, and we can see that between the overnight hours through 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. We're going to stay with you as long as we can throughout the overnight hours, and be with you at least now until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. We may have to come and go for a few minutes here and there, but we're going to stay with you as much as possible throughout the overnight hours until early Friday morning. Now, that's the very latest. Again, we're going to be with you throughout the night, giving you the very latest information. We have this is just coming in now, a new tornado warning coming in now for Florida. This is out of Jacksonville until 9:30. Pardon me, it's for Georgia, out of Jacksonville. For southeastern Georgia's Glenn County. At 9:12, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near the Country Club Estates, or near Dock Junction, moving to the northwest at 55 miles per hour. So these little quick spin ups are really hauling it tonight, again, going as fast as cars going down the interstate or down the highway. But they are really moving, so you do not have any time to take shelter. You need to take shelter now. Don't wait. And again, get to the lowest part of your home, the center part of your house, away from windows. If you're experiencing flooding for some reason coming into your home right now, you'll have to do that balancing act, or you go to the lowest part of your home, but the highest, to stay away from the water during the tornado event, which they usually last about 30 minutes. We're expecting winds in excess of 40 to 60 miles per hour in metropolitan Atlanta area tonight. Gusts could be 70 east of here, and we're going to have some pretty strong winds, of course, along the coast, 80 miles per hour, with gusts up to 130 in the Big Bend area of Florida. Storm surge up to 20 feet. That is unsurvivable. If you're along the coast at the Big Bend, it is unsurvivable. The water will rise 20 feet up into the air, and this is an unprecedented event of its own. There's so many things happening tonight that's just off the charts. It's unbelievable. We had an enhanced risk for a tornado today in southeastern Georgia, which is actually even rare for a hurricane. Usually there are 1s and 2s, but this was a 3. So this is a very strong storm that is coming in. And as long as you're prepared, you should be safe, remain calm, and we'll get through the night. Then in the meantime, again, we're going to be here throughout the night. It's 9:17 Eastern Time. We're live from Atlanta with continuing coverage of Hurricane Helene here on Channel 1 Atlanta. Coming up next, we're going to take you over to Fox Weather, and then in just a few moments, we're going to join a local affiliates in Tallahassee, Florida for continuing coverage there.
For the hurricane.
Yeah, Mark, we're looking at some of your cameras right now, and it really is striking to me. I mean, I feel like the idea of storm surge is already such a hard concept to really wrap your head around. But this is the real truth. This is what puts it into perspective of why you need to be away from the coast in scenarios and in storms like this. I mean, the waves are breaking onshore and then pushing. I mean, there's the seawall right there, and you have waves that are lapping up over the shores and over the road.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to just get higher and higher, especially up in the Big Bend area, potentially 20 feet. And then on top of that, that wave action, and you're going to start getting structures that are bulldozed and tremendous amounts of vegetative debris. And unfortunately, a bunch of animals are going to get swept up into that. And this is really going to be painful for people to see tomorrow at first light. A generational hurricane here for the Big Bend area of Florida. And then, as you all have been talking about so well, it's going to move into the southeast from there.
You really talk about the magnitude, generational hurricane for the Big Bend of Florida. You've been through a number of big storms. Ian was one that for Florida is, of course, remembered, and we're still picking up the pieces from the surge there in Fort Myers Beach. Up to 20 feet of surge in the Big Bend. When you look at Helene on a broad scale, for what you've seen in your experiences, what are you most concerned with? Which impact? Is it the surge? Is it the wind? Because we already have extreme wind warnings up for places like Perry, Florida, that could see winds over 130 miles an hour.
Yeah, so the biggest concern is the storm surge, because you just can't survive that kind of force of water and all the different stuff that's in it. Now that it's nighttime, that makes it even more horrifying. And we can't predict exactly where those peak values are going to happen. And so that's the number one concern. And then the next thing is the threat of incredible flooding in parts of western North Carolina and the vicinity of the upstate South Carolina, where the high risk is for flooding. A high risk of flash flooding should get the exact same attention.
Related spots, and most of those winds will stay very elevated, but it increases the possibility that we could see some 100+ mile per hour gusts along the Taylor County coast. So if you've still got power, don't count on it lasting much longer, because this is moving about 25 miles per hour. All right, let's go. We're widening back out. There's another view as that center continues to race off toward the northeast. The worst of it, as far as the bands of rain, have moved on past Tampa, but those are still rotating up our way. And there is a tornado watch that's in effect. We're starting to see that possibility for some of these storms out here now as they start to rotate around the center. We've already seen some of those across parts of southwest Georgia, and that is still a possibility. But when you're talking about an area with 75 to 100+ mile an hour winds, that's basically just a big tornado that's coming our way. So moving into coastal Jefferson and Taylor counties in particular during the next hour. But you're really going to start, and we're going to check out the winds here in just a moment to see what they're doing over toward Alligator Point. The futurecast, we're not going to see any significant changes. What's important is that it's a large system. Yes, extreme southwest Georgia, western Big Bend, you will get some tropical storm force wind gusts, you will get some power outages, and still an outside shot over southwest Georgia for an isolated tornado. But the area from Cairo to Tallahassee to Crawfordville and points east, that's where we'll see the worst. And then kind of separate the coast, because the coast, you may not get the worst of the winds, but that water is still going to pile up. Now let's talk about those winds. We're starting to see them gust higher up our way. So not as high down over the Gulf waters to our south, but Clearwater Beach, you say, well, the worst of it has gone by. Gusting to 67 miles per hour right now. That's going to cause some damage. Locally, the winds are still running around 15 to 25 miles per hour. But now we're starting to see those continued gusts. They've been pretty consistent, about 45 to 50 miles per hour from Alligator Point to Apalachicola. Perry now up to 39 miles per hour. So that's tropical storm strength. And this is just the start of it as it moves off toward the northeast. Still tracking what we expect. Those 65, 75, 95 mile an hour winds will come inland as we get 10 to 11 to 12 across the Big Bend counties, especially the eastern half of the Big Bend. Tallahassee, Thomasville, Monticello, you could still see some wind gusts in that 70 to 75 mile per hour range. They're more likely the farther east you go and could exceed 100 miles per hour from Mayo to Live Oak, and could get pretty close to that. This may be underdone from Valdosta to Homerville, but I think this is reasonable to expect 75 to 85 or 90 mile per hour gusts in some spots across parts of South Georgia. And then as we get beyond around 3 o'clock, it's still windy, but it will get better, and it'll be a slow process, but it will continue to get better and better overnight. So I'll wrap up this part, but just to remind everybody that the center, this is when everything starts to to go downhill. Hopefully everybody's in a good, safe place, especially if you are in Taylor County. If you waited it out, I hope you're in a good, sturdy place. And if you're watching on TV, watching us on the stream, listening on the radio, we will stay with you and guide you through this. But this is the unfortunate part, when the worst of it gets ready to move on shore. And unfortunately, it's not going to weaken much. It will once it hits the coast, but it's moving so quickly that that weakening trend will be slow compared to that forward speed. So that's it for now. Let's toss it on back to Abby and Ava.
Well, Mike, that's what a lot of people I've been looking on Facebook have been saying is like, oh, I don't really, it's just kind of some rain and it's just kind of this. And it feels like we have been dealing with this for a very long time. But as you were saying, the time, I mean, things are going to increase rapidly when it comes to things deteriorating and the conditions just falling apart and the winds picking up.
Well, and it's human nature. We want it to be over quickly. Yes. And so we're kind of like, when's it going to start so that it can be over?
Yeah.
But yes, it's literally just been the prelude. It's just the workup to all of it. This is the main event that's coming in right now and will be for the next few hours.
Absolutely. You definitely need to make sure that you are prepared if you have stayed there. I was watching the interview with Kevin Guthrie from earlier at the state EOC talking about if you've decided to stay and you start hearing snapping and popping and things like that. He said that is trees and limbs falling down and you need to make sure that you get yourself to the interior part of your house just like you would with a tornado.
That's the cue.
And make sure that you have a mattress or something to kind of put over you in case something would fall to kind of, you know, shield that and to shield yourself.
That's right. Absolutely. You have to be aware.
Absolutely. Okay, of course, Madison County soon be feeling Helene's wrath. We want to bring in now Lee Bassford, the Madison County Emergency Manager. She is joining us live on the phone. Thank you for taking the time, ma'am. We feel for you guys. We're thinking about you guys. We know you have a shelter there. We know you've had mandatory evacuations for things like RVs and mobile homes. Do you feel like people took that seriously and evacuated?
Well, I'll say this. We have around 400 people in our shelter currently. So I hope that they have heeded our warnings over the last week, and a lot of our residents chose to get out of the path of the storm.
All right.
Well, and yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's going to be a difficult few hours ahead. What are you expecting to see?
Well, we're currently under an extreme wind warning, and citizens should understand this is likely to be a wind event like our county has never experienced before. So they should treat it like a tornado warning, find shelter in the innermost portion of the home, prepare to ride out the storm, and to take care of the families.
And is there, we are getting down to that time where Helene is about to make landfall. For any of the people in your area who may be watching or listening, do you have any last advice for them before the storm makes its way to Madison County?
Same thing, just to get to the safest portion of their home when the winds start picking up. We advise all residents to please stay off the roadways after the wind subsides so that our first responders can do their jobs and get to the citizens that need help. So we, again, just emphasize to please stay off the roadways after the storm.
All right. Lee Bassford with the Madison County Emergency Management. Thank you so much, ma'am. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you for having me.
Panama City also feeling some impacts from Helene. Dekibion Gaz with our sister station WJHG visited the Emergency Operations Center and spoke with our Congressman Neil Dunn.
Yes, I'm standing here with Congressman Neil Dunn here at the Bay County Emergency Operations Center preparing for Hurricane Helene. No, we are kind of out of the cone, Mr. Dunn.
Bay County's out of the cone, but 10 of my 16 counties in my district are under mandatory evacuation orders.
Now, we're not unfamiliar with big storms. With Michael coming through 6 years ago, kind of talking about what we're doing to prepare for Helene here.
So I'm really proud of the efforts that Florida has made over the years to prepare itself for this kind of disaster. And, this is years of effort on the part of the emergency operations staff in all the counties. So every county in the state has one of these emergency operations centers. And they are all networked. We just got off a call with all of them. And everybody reported their needs and their preparations, and it was a great report. It was good news. Everybody's bunkered down, ready to go. There are some people who haven't responded to the mandatory evacuation. Please, if you're in one of those counties, listen to your EOC, Emergency Operations Center. They are there to help you and save your life.
I understand. Now, from my understanding, since we are out of the cone, we've been through this before. We're going to help the people outside. How do we plan on helping these counties who might potentially be hit by this hurricane?
So it's worth remembering when we had Michael hit here, right here, we got a lot of help from our neighbors. And our neighbors are going to need our help tomorrow. And we should be there for them. And we're talking about marshaling together the food, the water, the generators, all the things that keep civilization operational. So we're here to help each other, county to county. And together, locked together, we make a great system.
850 strong.
850 strong.
Neighbors helping neighbors.
Thank you, Keith.
Reporting live here in Bay County, DeKevion Goss, News Channel 7.
All right. Well, again, earlier this week, our anchor Zach Dahlheimer also talked with Congressman Dunn. Again, was talking about the money for FEMA, because a lot of there's talk of FEMA doesn't have the money, and people worried obviously about what's going to happen to us, in the storm's aftermath. He did say, Congress is coming together to make sure that there is funding for those recovery efforts, and we'll have much more of that in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, put a lot of people at ease.
Yes. Absolutely.
Hurricane Helene strengthened to a Category 4 forecast to hit the Big Bend tonight with winds at least 130 miles per hour. You can see these powerful waves there crashing onto docks in Clearwater, Florida and Pinellas County, and one dock has already been taken out.
All right, and again, strong winds and waves hitting the Howard Franklin Bridge. Oh my gosh, this is in the Tampa area. Everyone knows this bridge. This is a very famous bridge, and those people should not be on that bridge.
No, not at all.
That is just crazy right there. You can see the waves just crashing in there. This is an example of what you do not do.
Yeah, it's very unsettling to see people actually driving on the bridge.
All right. Well, the landfall for Hurricane Helene continuing to move closer. We need to be preparing. The Category 4 storm is expected to make landfall very, very soon. We know that trees will be down, power lines will be down, knocked out, potentially, destruction to property. Not catching people by surprise here, though. It really does seem that a lot of you out there, all of us, we're taking this very seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a fast-moving storm. It just kind of appeared almost, but we have been talking about it for a while, and I think it seems like everyone's really been invested in being prepared. It seems like, just in terms of shelters and people getting advance warning that you need to leave or mandatory evacuations, that sort of thing. So we've been tracking Hurricane Helene for several days, and thanks to our meteorologists and the hurricane hunters.
Our primary mission is to take the coordinates that the National Hurricane Center gives us and to find the exact center of the storm.
It's vital to have these assets in the storm continuously as it's approached the United States to really get the proper forecast correct.
And the hurricane hunters are able to track everything from wind speed and direction to pressure and temperatures. It's unbelievable to think they actually fly in the eye of this
They are
hurricane.
some brave men and women, that is for sure. All right. Well, we can hear that the rain is starting to pick up over the roof of the WCTV studios. And so we want to send things out to meteorologist Josh Green. He is out live in front of our studios. He has been holding an umbrella for the past couple of live hits. Let's see if that's happening now. Josh, are you still holding that umbrella? He is not.
Oh, okay.
Yes. No more umbrella, Ava and Abby. I tried to use the umbrella, and here it is. That was because of about a 30 to 35 mile per hour wind gust. So what that tells me is that it is time to be off of the roadways in Leon County. Thank you so much, Ryan Kelly, for handing me said umbrella. Yes, that means that we're starting to see some of those close to, if not tropical storm force wind gusts. Now, those are the shorter bursts of wind. When you talk about sustained winds, those have to last for about 2 minutes. So we're not at tropical storm force sustained winds yet here in Tallahassee. That's where I'm standing right now on the northeast side of town. But over the next hour or two, that's when those tropical storm force wind gusts will turn into sustained winds. That's when we're going to start to notice a few more of those power outages all across Leon County. And we're looking at major Hurricane Helene making landfall now within the next hour or two. And what that means is if you are in Leon County, if you're in Tallahassee, and you're wondering when's the worst of the storm going to get to me, that's going to be happening at around 11 and 12, all right, 11 p.m. and midnight, and it's going to continue till about 1 a.m., and that's when conditions will finally start to improve a little bit and will considerably improve as we head into early Friday morning. So again, my key messages from this report is that it is time to be off the roadways in Leon County. We do have those tropical storm force wind gusts that are arriving here in Tallahassee, and yes, the rain is coming down. Conditions are only going to continue to worsen over the next couple of hours. So I'll be sure to give you another report as some of those closer bands of gusty winds and rain start to get a little bit closer into the town of the capital city.
All right, I know everyone is kind of like anxious and there's kind of a feeling in the air, so I just want to provide a little bit of comedic levity here. Josh, you showed us that umbrella. That was my umbrella. You borrowed that umbrella from me. Just saying, you owe me an umbrella. Just saying. I know.
No.
I know.
Don't
Thanks,
worry,
buddy.
Don't worry. I've got 2 more that I'm going to pay you back double.
Ah, thank you, buddy. Okay, thank you for being out there, everybody. Just needed to lighten the mood just a little bit.
We needed it.
Just a little bit. All right. Ava and I are going to step off. We're going to get ourselves some food, get some coffee. But after that, Julie and Jacob are going to come back. But in the meantime, we're going to send things over to meteorologist Cameron Aaron. He's got the very latest on what's going on with Helene. Cam, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Abby and Ava, thank you guys so much. We are awaiting the new update from the National Hurricane Center in less than 30 minutes. But at this point, Hurricane Helene, still a strong Category 4 hurricane. Those winds of 140 miles per hour, the pressure down to 941 millibars, pushing off to the northeast at 24 miles per hour. So we are expecting a landfall pretty soon in the Big Bend of Florida. And this will continue racing off to the northeast over the next several hours. So again, if you live further inland in South Georgia, this is still a big issue for you as well, as we are tracking the potential for Category 1, possibly a Category 2 hurricane as far north as South Georgia. Also want to point this out, just because you live outside the cone, in the Panhandle, in the Peninsula, or anywhere east or west of that center of circulation, because Helene is so large, we are expecting impacts outside the cone. Those hurricane force gusts, they extend upwards of 60 miles away from the center of circulation. So again, we are tracking big impacts as Helene comes ashore. Let's talk about what's going on at this hour. This is a close-up of Hurricane Helene. This is the eye. This is the eye wall. Check out how much lightning has developed over the past couple of radar scans, especially on the western and northwestern side of the eye wall. So again, as this comes ashore in Taylor County, possibly close to Jefferson County, this is the worst part of the storm. So a heads up in Perry, a heads up in Keaton Beach, in Steinhatchee, in southern Jefferson County. This is the worst part of the eye wall. It will continue racing off to the northeast over the next couple of minutes there. A few of those approximate arrival times of that eye wall. We're talking Steinhatchee 9:40, Shady Grove 10:18, talking about Lamont at 10:29, possibly as far north and east as Madison at 10:46. So about 1 hour away, close to the I-10 corridor. And again, this is going to be a system that will have to take its time to weaken because it's moving so quickly. So these hurricane force gusts, they are going to extend further inland. Not only a coastal storm, but also a storm that we have to watch out for further inland, close to the I-10 corridor and over into South Georgia. Let's zoom into parts of Taylor County, pushing into Lafayette County, also into Suwannee County. You can see those bands of heavy rainfall. They continue to rotate around the circulation of Hurricane Helene. Same story for the capital city in Tallahassee. Notice the yellow and the orange color. They continue rotating to the north and west, impacting Leon County, also impacting Crawfordville and McCulloch County. And the same story closer to South Georgia for our friends in Thomasville and Valdosta. Some wet weather, and the conditions will continue to go downhill as we go through the rest of your Thursday night, also early on Friday. Now, this is a relatively rare event. The National Weather Service has issued an extreme wind warning for the areas in this purple color. That is for places in far eastern Leon County, far eastern McCulloch County, all of Jefferson County, all of Madison County, all of Taylor County, and for Mayo and points to the west over in Lafayette County. Again, this is for the eye wall of Hurricane Helene. As this comes ashore, we could see winds upwards of 100, possibly more than 100 miles per hour. At this point, we are gusting to 51 in Apalachicola, gusting to 44 in Alligator Point, gusting to 43 over in Perry. But I do think we see these wind gusts really spike over the next hour or so, especially close to the coast. And again, if you are under that extreme wind warning, now is the time to take shelter. Treat this as a tornado warning. Go ahead and go indoors. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible and stay away from those windows. Also, if you have a helmet, wouldn't hurt to put that on as well if you're under that extreme wind warning. Let's talk about those future wind gusts. This is from the graph model. Again, this is just one model run, so these aren't completely accurate. Don't take these to the bank to the exact number. But this is showing winds upwards of 94, possibly up to 100 or more than 100 miles per hour close to the eye wall of Hurricane Helene. And again, as we go past midnight, past 1 a.m., notice those strong gusts extend into parts of South Georgia, gusting to more than 75 or more than 85 miles per hour in some areas close to the I-75 corridor. Now, we are tracking some rapid improvement by Friday morning as drier air is on the way as we wake up on Friday. Until then, tracking several different threats. One of those, possibly a few tornadoes, and this is a tornado watch in place that will last until 10 o'clock this evening. But I am anticipating this to be extended, especially along into the east of that landfall center. We have a level 2 slight risk of severe weather in place from Thomasville to Tallahassee and back to the west, or back to the east, I should say, over those far eastern counties. That is a level 2 slight risk of severe weather. So again, we could see a few of those spin up tornadoes. Now, once you factor in tropical tornadoes, those are very quick to develop, also very quick to spin down. They don't last too long, so the lead time may not be the best. So be sure that you have a way to receive warnings, have that First Alert weather app through this evening, and to go into the first half of your Friday. We have a flood watch also in place. This will last through Friday morning. As heavy rain continues across the Big Bend in South Georgia, these numbers are on top of the rain that we had on Wednesday and also throughout the day on Thursday. We could still see rainfall totals of additional rain up to 1, possibly up to 5 or more than 5 inches of rain over the next several hours as Helene pushes further inland. A hurricane warning also continues for all the areas in this red color for most of our counties. Now, for Mariana and Jackson County, also for Calhoun County, this is a tropical storm warning. But like I talked about a few minutes ago, because Helene is so large, we're going to see those impacts well outside the cone. For the Panhandle as far west as near Destin, for the peninsula as far east, we have a hurricane warning close to Gainesville. So again, this is a very large system. Don't only pay attention to the center of circulation. A storm surge warning continues from Apalachicola all the way over to Steinhatchee. We are expecting those storm surge values to rise through the overnight hours as Helene pushes further inland over parts of the Big Bend, possibly between 15 to 20 feet from Carabel over to Steinhatchee. Once again, this is not going to be a widespread scenario where everyone sees storm surge values this high, but a few pockets could see storm surge up to 15 or 20 feet, especially along into the east of that forecasted cone where it comes ashore. So as you go further west over parts of St. George Island, close to Dog Island, this is a forecast of 10 to 15 feet of storm surge on the western side of that circulation. We're also watching out for this high tide that is coming in after midnight, after 1 a.m. for most of us. That's also working against us to go into the overnight hours. In terms of those impacts, the forecast remains the same as Hurricane Helene is approaching landfall over the next hour or so in the Big Bend of Florida. Again, closer to the center, we could see those winds over 100 miles per hour, possibly over 110 miles per hour in those gusts close to the center of circulation. Those widespread power outages, they are likely as the center moves ashore. Let's check in with Julie and Jacob at the desk. Guys, back to you.
All right, Cameron, you're doing an excellent job so far this evening. We are back here on the desk, and we'll take our viewers through landfall, and perhaps our weather team can let us know when landfall does occur so we can cut in and let our folks know when that does occur. And we're, of course, thinking about all our friends right now in Taylor, Madison, Lowndes, Suwannee counties, and beyond. And, of course, here in Tallahassee, we're seeing effects. So we're going to be tracking all of that over the next few hours as we see Helene move ashore.
Absolutely. And we were starting to hear really torrential rains outside the studio right now. You may have seen Josh and his, just sad umbrella earlier.
Yes.
It's the effects of this storm are really starting to come ashore now and affect communities all across our viewing area. So, there are community leaders and emergency managers that are going to be up all night tonight monitoring this and trying to make sure that they are ready to go as soon as it's safe to go out and help pick up the pieces from this storm. We want to join Tallahassee Mayor John Daly right now. He is spending the night at City Hall. Mayor, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you're being kept up to date on all of the things that are happening across the city. What's happening right now as we hear the rain on the roof?
Well, first of all, I want to thank y'all for your coverage. Y'all have done a tremendous job, and we certainly appreciate it. Yeah, now is the time to hunker down. As you said, Julie, the wind is extremely hard, and the rain is hard down here at City Hall. The storm's coming in. We want everybody to be very safe and stay in. The city is prepared to respond. Once the storm passes through, we'll go out and make our professional assessment and roll up our sleeves and get to work.
And Mayor, of course, the city and the county issued those mandatory evacuations for folks who live in mobile homes, a rare choice, but one that was done with safety in mind. Any indication whether folks heeded those warnings?
That's a great question, and you're correct. It was a county evacuation order. I can tell you that I believe we have about 1,500, 1,700 people in shelters that have been established in Leon County schools, which is a great sign that people are taking advantage of the shelters. So I think that people have been paying attention, and I think for the most part, our residents have taken this storm extremely serious.
Yeah, it's out there spinning with that Cat 4 marker right now. Intense wind, intense rain ahead. Mayor, at last check, about 2,500 people in the city of Tallahassee were without power, and of course we're expecting that number to rise in the hours ahead. How many crews do you have on standby to help restore power, and what has the city of Tallahassee learned from past storms that is helping it to make restoration quicker?
Yeah, great question, Julie. We've got over 2,000 employees in our utility department that is working hard around the clock. It is all hands on deck to keep everybody safe and to keep the city up and running. After every storm that comes through, we always do an after-action report where we study and analyze what works and where we can improve. And over the years, we know that preparation is the key to success. One of the reasons why we've staged our assets all across the community, we've staged our personnel across the community, we've called in our mutual aid agreements. 9 states, as far away as Oklahoma, have been sending their crews to Tallahassee to help us. So, look, again, we are prepared, and we're ready to get to work. But you know as well as I do that when you have a Category 4 hurricane come through your area, there's going to be significant damage. I want to remind everybody that recovery will be a marathon, not a sprint. But we're Tallahassee strong, and we're going to do it.
And, Mayor, storm anxiety is a real thing. A lot of us, perhaps all of us, are feeling it. Now, what's your message to residents who are worried right now as the worst of the storm moves inland at this hour? I know lots of folks are anxious about what they might see, as you mentioned, when the sun comes up as well.
I apologize. I had a tickle in my throat. No, I agree, and I think it's normal to be nervous when storms of this side come through. I want to reemphasize that now is the time for us to all be safe. Your first line of defense is you and your family. Check on your neighbors if you can and call them. But know that your city is prepared as an institution. The county is prepared as the institution. We're working with the state. We're working with our partners from across the country, and we're gonna make it. But you are correct. Now is a very difficult time as the storm rolls through, and I hope everybody stays safe.
All right, Mayor Daley, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our best to you and all of the city employees who are working tonight to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've seen communities across the Big Bend and a little farther south see impacts from Helene already. Michael Bobbitt is a resident in Cedar Key, where we've seen some pretty incredible images tonight. He said he was riding out the storm, but he had that same anxiety, that same fear about what his community will look like come Friday, especially after Idalia's impacts from last year. Take a listen.
It's not good. It's just in the last hour, really, things have started to come apart. The Gulf is rising up to swallow the island. During Hurricane Idalia a year ago, we got about 7 foot of storm surge, and it completely devastated the island. We're looking at between 12 and possibly 20 feet of storm surge. Luckily, I'm in a house at the top of a tall hill. I think I'll be okay, but I don't know that Cedar Key as we know it will exist in the morning.
That is certainly a stark way to put it, and that can be said true for our coastal communities in Taylor County as well.
I was going to say, across the Gulf Coast of Florida, so many of these communities have weathered serious, significant storms over these last few years. They are storm weary. They know how hard it is. They know how much damage they can do. And honestly, they know how hard it is to recover from them as well. So definitely our hearts going out to people tonight. And, as the Mayor Daley mentioned, there are a lot of people in this community who are going to work hard to help recover.
Right, and if landfall indeed is in Taylor County tonight, that'll be the 3rd hurricane to make landfall in Taylor County in just over a year.